Right. Okay. Afternoon, chaps. Right. So, obviously, we had the most boring F1 race in history yesterday. Um, Last night I was on a forum, and a lot of fans are saying get rid of Monaco. That's not the answer. The answer is, and the solution is this: make it more even playing field and make overtaking easier. Max Verstappen proved you could overtake there. What was interesting was the amount of people complaining about Lewis Hamilton complaining. And had Lewis Hamilton won the race, he wouldn't have complained so much, and that's probably true. The issue that Munch here, the issue that F1 has is that over the last 10, 15 years, it has become very boring. It doesn't help when the Pirelli are making tyres that don't last a race, or you can't fully push them because they disintegrate after 5 to 10 laps. That's dull. That's really dull. I mean, in these NASCAR tyres can last like 70, 80 laps. Touring cars, they can last the whole race. F1, 5 to 10 laps for a tyre to last. Or a short circuit, Monaco's short circuit, that's pretty embarrassing. Now, on other events, in the news this morning, it has been confirmed that a documentary is going ahead from the Al Jazeera network about cricket match fixing. And it alleges that back in 2016, in the India-England Test Series that winter in Chennai, about 3 England players and some Indian players were involved in collaborating to spot fix or match fix a part of the Test match. And it's very interesting what the ECB have come out and said, and they've denied it, and Joe Root's denied it. We've heard this before. Hansi Cronje, 20 years ago, was caught out in a police undercover operation that was a wiretap. The police were wiretapping organised criminal syndicate trying to get a case for federal court. And they were using these criminals were using a hotel. And Hansi Cronje was in the hotel and he had a meeting with a match fixer who was linked to this organised crime group, and they caught him by accident. This documentary has some political motive behind it because the ICC is based in UAE, and the Al Jazeera network is based out of Qatar. And between those two countries and some other countries in that part of Arabia, there are some political tensions right now. There is some political motive behind this. However, I'm not naive enough to believe that match fixing does not exist. It is there. Match fixing exists. The fact that the cricket players are as yet unnamed, and there are some Australians allegedly involved in match fixing. And of course, we saw what happened with the balls hampering in the South Africa series over this winter, and the aftermath of that. And I question whether there could be some spot or match fixing involved, because there's only 2 reasons why you tamper a ball. You either want to get a ball replacement, or you want to give your bowlers an advantage. Because why else would you do it? Now, spot betting is a thing. You can bet on when the new ball is taken or a ball replacement is taken. You can bet on that. That's one of the reasons why you would ball tamper. Now, the issues that have been raised by this documentary are in a period of time where the IPL has had some match fixing allegations. Srisanth has been banned for life. The Pakistani test team in 2010, 3 of their players were banned, 2 banned for life, 1 banned for 5 years, all 3 went to prison. So the time frame we're looking at is post 2010. We're looking at really the last 8 years of cricket, and specifically the last few years in a very short time frame. It's alleging that there's players from various test playing teams and nations that are involved in a match fixing ring alongside some very well known organised crime figures in the Indian crime world, match fixers, to spot fix and set periods of matches for betting syndicates. Because gambling is not legal in India, but it's legal over here. So the only way over here you would find out if there was suspicious activity is with betting patterns. Now, obviously, India, it's illegal to gamble, and therefore it's an unregulated, illegal activity. Large sums of money are changing hands. People are making a lot of money on this. It's a very non-violent way for the criminals to operate for the most part. So this is ongoing. And then there was rumours that Liverpool might have fixed the Champions League final to lose. You don't want to lose the Champions League final. The amount of prize money you miss out on. The goalkeeper just had a nightmare. It is plain and simple. The abuse he has received is unacceptable. But back to the cricket match fixing, it comes at a time when England are playing Pakistan and India this summer, and they are two of the nations involved in the alleged match fixing scandal of a series of nations involved in a match fixing ring going around the world at test matches and one days and ODIs. It also comes out at a time, this documentary, just before the World Cup in Russia, and there are allegations of corruption to do with not the bidding process or getting the World Cup, but match fixing already. There's allegations that there could be players approached to fix games. It also comes at a time we just found out that 3 snooker players have been suspended and are investigated for match fixing. There's a report come out on tennis about match fixing in tennis. It's very well timed, if you think about it. The release of this documentary, very well timed. They do use evidence that has been obtained by secret recordings, either by the Indian Federal Police or by the journalists themselves who work for Al Jazeera, into the match fixing and how they're going about it. So that's interesting. It is exceptionally interesting. There's a lot to this. There's more will come out. The ECB, Cricket Australia, and the other governing bodies have all come out and vehemently denied that any of their players, or they have any active knowledge of any of their players doing any wrongdoing. However, the ICC is investigating. So someone at the ICC is taking this seriously enough to go, well, we're going to investigate this. We are concerned. And I'm seeing a lot of parallels with Hansi Cronje in the late 90s, early 90s, when he was called out, lied under oath in a parliamentary session where he was sat down in front of a parliamentary committee in South Africa. Okay, not the least corrupt country in the world, but he was in front of the lawmakers of his country and the governing body of cricket in South Africa, and he lied. He sat in front of the ICC and he lied. And then when the evidence was released of that voice recording of him on the phone and wiretaps, he didn't have a leg to stand on. He eventually admitted what he did. I'm seeing striking similarities. Also, the time this happens, the time frame. This is when England's away form and an away Test series completely collapses, completely falls off a cliff. You could not make this up. England last won away at the beginning of 2016 in South Africa. They haven't won an away Test series for quite some time, and they have struggled the last 2 years away from home, and that started in that India Test series. So there is some correlation here between the allegations of the match fixing with these players and the documentary, and the poor away form for England in cricketing terms outside of England for Test matches. There is a bit of a correlation there. It is troubling the time it's come out. There is some political motivation behind these alleged match fixing allegations against these cricket players. The fact that none of these players have been named by the TV station is interesting. The fact that there are a lot of Test series taking place, and a lot of the nations that are implicated or alleged implicated are all playing each other this summer. That's really interesting. And it comes at a time when another sport is going to be really looking taking over the news in the World Cup. This is going to, I think, be on the back burner. Hello there. Yes, it's been very hot here as well. We had some, as you saw last night, some really heavy thunderstorms. It was never dropped below 25 degrees last night. It was really humid. There's a lot of thunderstorms around. It's very hot. It's very humid. It's to do with the weather system. and where the wind's coming from, it's coming from continental Europe. It's very hot. It's very humid. There's going to be some more thunderstorms. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, where are you staying in the Netherlands? Like, I know, I mean, I've been through Holland. It's a very interesting country. But yeah, no. We the weather has been very hot, very changeable. This is what the World Cup weather is going to be like in about 3 weeks' time. The weather conditions in Russia are going to be very, very similar to what we are having in northwestern Europe now. Very hot, very humid, thunderstorms. So if you're watching the World Cup, oh, Amsterdam is a lovely city, lovely little city. Uh, yeah, Amsterdam. There's not as much to do as people think. It's a small little city, but it's very interesting, very historical. Obviously, you're there for. There are some interesting things to do in Amsterdam, which are not so legal over here. But no, very historical, very sporting city as well. Really interesting sporting history of the city with Ajax and the fact they hosted the Year 2000s final. We obviously there's a big footballing fan base there. Obviously, the Ajax and Cruyff and players like that. So it's a very historic city in sporting terms as well, with some of the great sporting stories that have come out of Holland and Dutch sport come through Amsterdam. It's a very interesting place that I would like to spend more time in. So that's some place I might want to go visit when I have a bit more time and a bit more money and get a passport. Yeah, I've just gone on live. There's a few things I want to talk about, but I don't want to do 10 separate videos because it's so hot and it's so humid. It's a lot of research. So I'd rather just discuss the things in one, and because the tennis has been a bit boring at Roland Garros. I'm not a big fan of the French Open, so I'm not a big fan of clay court tennis, but I will look at some of the major figures playing at Roland Garros. But yeah, I am a bit bored. I decided to do another live stream because last night, obviously, it got so hot last night. The thunderstorms were insane. And I went to the pub. I didn't get in until 6 o'clock this morning, so I haven't had no sleep. I went straight to the pub, went around my mate's house. We had a get together at my mate's house, and I didn't get in until 6 o'clock this morning. So I've only had a few hours sleep. So I can't sleep. It's too hot. I was at my mate's house for like 6 hours. Ended up getting in early hours this morning. Well, 6 o'clock this morning, and I haven't been able to sleep. It's just too hot. I haven't really heard any much about Rangers really. Obviously, Gerrard's new manager. They are going to give him some money to spend in the transfer market. How much is yet to be seen. I think he's going to be able to sign some young English players or young academy players from both Liverpool and other clubs in England. So he's going to be able to strengthen the squad on the cheap, which is kind of interesting. Get some young English talent or youth development talent. Quite affordably, which would be very, very good. And we have to see how he does. I mean, I think he's going to help grow the interest in Scottish football again, because Scottish football needs that extra investment, that interest from overseas. It needs a name like that to get the media in a positive light. It's a difficult one because the league is so uncompetitive, but it needs to be a bit more competitive and stuff like that. Coventry, yeah, my friend's brother's a Coventry fan. But another one of my friends lives right by Exeter's ground in Exeter, so I'm sorry, but I'm rooting for Exeter in this one. I hope Exeter do it. But Coventry, again, a club that have hit hard times in the last 10, 20 years. Very, very shocking decline. And so this is when people say to me, "Oh, look at the money in football. Look at the Premier League. It's done so well for football." But look at the clubs that have struggled because of the Premier League and the struggle to stay in the top division and the debt. And when it goes wrong, it goes horribly wrong. But yeah, this is the end of the regular season. This is the last match of the season. Is the League Two playoff final. So as soon as this match is done, we are now into the international season, and that's that. Yeah, no, this is the problem. Rangers can't get above third. They have closed the gap on Aberdeen, and Aberdeen have closed the gap on Celtic. So it is starting to tighten up at the top of the Scottish Premiership. But Rangers have to be careful that Hibs don't overtake them, because that could happen. That Hibs are sniffing around. They're fourth at the moment. They are sniffing around to get to higher up the table for next year. So the top four places are very congested. It's a lot closer this season than it was the last couple of seasons. So I think Celtic might be running out of steam a little bit. they can't keep winning all the trophies forever, because there's got to become a point where they lose a lot of their good players. There has to come a point where someone else has to win that league. Otherwise, you'll get so uncompetitive. You won't be able to recruit the talent. With Gerrard going into Scottish football, with Gerrard going north of the border to manage, that is going to bring a lot of international media interest and a lot of interest in the Scottish League. And hopefully that's where the investment comes, and that's where the interest and the fans really start turning up, and other clubs give it a go. Because Aberdeen have got a good side and they can beat Celtic on their day. Hibs have got a good side, and they can give it a crack. It's just about getting the money behind the other clubs to challenge Celtic financially, because the big signings aren't going to Scotland anymore. I'm hoping Aberdeen can topple them first. I think if Aberdeen were to win the league, that'll make it really interesting for Scottish football and make more interest. If it was Rangers or Celtic, it doesn't have the same effect. It needs to be Aberdeen. I think Aberdeen needs to do it. And I think Aberdeen are getting that gap closer. But the issue is big name players don't want to play for Scottish clubs anymore. They haven't wanted to play for Scottish clubs for 10, 20 years. And that's where the problem lies, is then Scottish clubs at the moment are just not attracting the decent player. Well, 3G and 4G. This debate is more on rugby forums that I'm on. As someone who's played on an artificial pitch as a goalkeeper, we have local Astros. I've dislocated my shoulder. I can tell you now, the contact injuries are a hell of a lot worse. So if you're a goalkeeper and you're going for saves, you're going to wreck your shoulder. If you're a rugby player, you're going to wreck your back. People are saying, oh, they're better style of play, but you're getting more contact injuries where, because they absorb your energy differently when you're running and when you're tackling, they have no give in them. They have sod all give. So when you're going for a tackle, be it rugby or football, and you hit that surface, that is a concussive injury. That's a contact injury, and it's horrible. You're less likely to have the muscle tears necessarily, but you're more likely to have ligament damage, muscular damage, in the sense of dead leg, fractures, concussions. I'm not a fan of them, especially if they get a little dent in them, like when the panels, when they get broken and ripped up. That's concrete underneath. It's concrete and tires, recycled tires. They're not great. And I find it funny that was it Saracens or Wasps? I think it was Saracens. Their 4G pitch meant to be all weather, and the game got snowed off. When all the other pitches in the rugby union, when the snow was happening about 3 months ago, all went ahead. That's what I find really funny. 3 and 4G pitches, it is what it is. I think the problem is they do cost money, but in and the maintenance though is a bit less. But when you do need to repair bits, it costs a lot of money. And a lot of players are very critical of them. All these federations in rugby and in football are obsessed with trying, all you need is a pitch with good drainage and a decent groundsman. And it is what it is. Favourite Scottish team like Aberdeen. I've always had a little soft spot for the Dons. But I like Hibs and Hearts as well. I like the Edinburgh clubs. I've got mates who are Inverness fan, so I've got a lot of people who don't support Rangers and Celtic, which is nice. It's nice to have that mix of teams and fan bases. But I like Aberdeen, I like Hibs, and I like Hearts. As far as on the upcoming test, there is no news. I think Bess is staying in the side. I think Butler and Best proved they were the two best England players over the first test. They were heavily relied on to dig England out of a mess when they shouldn't have been, because they are the younger, especially Best debut, being required to bowl and bat as an all-round, basically as a second all-rounder, and trying to dig out England out of a hole on the fourth day. And third and fourth day. That was not great game management by England. That's the batting lineup. That's yet another batting collapse. And of course, the allegations of these match fixing allegations that have come out of Al Jazeera on their documentary they've released yesterday, saying that 3 England players, including a host of other players around the world, Indians, Pakistanis, Australians, were involved in this match fixing ring. Coincidentally, England haven't won an away test since 2016. There is no news on any upcoming squad news yet. It will be announced probably closer to the test. I would think Tuesday or Wednesday they'll probably announce the starting lineup. As far as I know, everyone's pretty fit. as far as I know. I think they're trying out a couple of combinations for the India series, so there may be more changes for when India play. But as far as I know, it's only a two-test series, so I think they're going with best for this series. They're resting Ali, and Moeen Ali might be back for the India Test series, but I'm not. I honestly think they're going to stick with what they've got, and then the next Test series they might fiddle with the lining up yet again because for some reason the coaching staff like keep chopping and changing the starting lineup, especially further up the order. The problem is not with England's tail; it's with the England's upper order, and that's where the problem is. Okay, give Coventry a 2-0 up. They're in control. It's their game to lose. Although all the playoff finals have all gone either to extra time or have only had a goal in it, so I wouldn't be surprised if Exeter start pushing back a little bit. So we'll have to see on that. Yes, Rangers do have the largest fan base in Scotland. I think 60% of Scottish football fans are Rangers fans. It is an interesting one. However, what I find really, really frustrating is firstly, down here south of the border, we don't get much news on Scottish football. It's a British league. I think it should get more coverage. That's one point. Secondly, the news is dominated by Rangers, Celtic, and a bit of Aberdeen, and that gets a bit boring. I can't believe players are getting in because with the security, obviously, with the terror threat level, and this is a bit more political now. This is take it slightly away from sport. They are actually banned in this country in football grounds. They have been for a long, long time. That's really worrying because that's showing that the security is really, really bad, really bad. Flares. I mean, if you've watched football abroad, which I have, it is a bit of a crazy atmosphere. At the same time, do you really want to have third-degree burns on your face? I don't think so because they do burn. I remember Inter Milan, AC Milan, they had a Champions League game and Dida was hit by a flare and had burns all down his back. It is worrying if the law of the land says you can have flares in a stadium, that's one thing. But UEFA have fined teams for bringing flares in European games, and the fans keep doing it, or members of the so-called fan base. So the Muppets keep doing it. I honestly think that highlights Wembley's security flaws. We've also had the issues at West Ham Stadium this season. That is highlighting complete and utter security flaws. They're not doing their checks properly. So whatever security firm has got the contract with the FA at Wembley, they're doing a real shocking job. If that's several playoff finals in a row or several games in a row where flares have been smuggled in, it's not good enough. And it happens at league stadiums a lot as well. We've seen it a lot this season. That says to me that the security companies that have got the contracts, probably G4S most likely, or something like that, one of the bigger security companies, aren't training their staff properly. And they're being very lax, very, very lax. It is worrying. Yes, I know Babar Azam has got a broken arm. He's going to miss the rest of the summer. I think he's out for a good 2 to 3 months. Salahuddin. I will have a look at him on the highlights, and then I'll listen to Test Match Special on 5 Live. I'll listen to the radio when I can, because obviously with work, and I'll see how he performs because he's obviously not selected first selection. He's obviously the backup, so he's obviously not shown enough to the Pakistani coaching side to get into the starting lineup straight away. So we'll have to see how he performs, considering he didn't play in the last test, and let's see how he does at Edgbaston, because that's a different wicket to Lords. Lords has a slope on it. Edgbaston is more flat. It's a different wicket, so we'll have to see how the English bowlers get in there, and we'll have to see how he performs. I mean, but Pakistan did bat very, very well with the lineup they had in both innings. In the first test, dominated. Their first innings score was just not a great score. It wasn't a massive score, but it was enough. They outbatted enough. They did enough, and they didn't have to play at their best. So it'll be interesting to see how he slots in and how he performs, considering that he didn't play the first test. I know he's done well in a warm-up game, but a warm-up game is a lower level. It's just to get his eye in and make sure he's fit. We shall see how he does. And it's part of, I think, Pakistan or any team's development is to see how players do, and in these situations where they're thrown in, because it means you're looking at your squad depth. And the World Cup next year, some of these players will want to play the World Cup next year as well, the short form of the game, and they're trying to get their eye in because the World Cup is in England. So a lot of these players that are going to be playing over here, Pakistan and India, and the Australians in the one day series that we have, are going to want to play for the World Cup next year. They want to get their eye in. They want to see what English cricket's all about on a one-off day, on let's say a 50-over session, and that'll be very, very interesting to see how some of the players adapt to the conditions. Because last night we had some very, very heavy thunderstorms, high humidity. So if you watch a replay of my live stream, towards the end of the live stream, this thunderstorm gets very close to my house. That could affect the second test. We've got a lot of thunderstorms floating around, and it's going to be going on like this all week. So it wasn't just Anderson and Broad. I think the whole bowling attack did not perform for England. The score was a decent score. It wasn't the best. They could have possibly got more if they were that they were that dominant with the ball and the bat. But it was the first Test match of the series. You want to make sure you don't lose it. So we'll see. The next Test match. I'm going to have to check when the next Test. I think it's this week because it's a 2-test series. I think it's Thursday or Friday. And then it's maybe why is Moeen Ali not playing? His form has dipped. I know the Ashes series he didn't play well in the Ashes. Whether he was fully fit, there were questions about he might have had a thumb injury, and he got dropped for the second Test against New Zealand in the Winter Series. And I think he's tired. He's not a bad player. I think he is physically tired. I think that England are overusing some of their key wicket-taking bowlers, and a lot of their bowlers can bat. Stuart Broad can bat. Anderson's chipped in with the odd 20 or 30 here. They can actually stroke play. Problem is they're being overused bowling because the upper order batsmen in their innings have failed to get a decent score. So they've got to bowl their heart out to control the opposition's score running, because the opposition batting lineup seems to be performing better against us. Even though the bowlers are still putting a session in, the opposition can, for some reason, just get more runs on the board on the same wicket. And I think they and so they're overusing the bowlers. So when they do come into bat to assist the team in batting and that kind of thing, they're exceptionally exhausted. So Moeen Ali is an all-rounder. He's very good at batting and bowling and fielding, but overused. He's bowling too many overs when he is playing, and when he comes to bat, he's fatigued, because even a spin bowler can get exceptionally tired from bowling 30, 40 overs of spin. It takes more concentration to be a spin bowler than a fast bowler, and there's a lot of shoulder rotation and arm rotation in that, and wrist rotation. He's going to get tired. Test championship, that is something that has been brought up before as a question. The logistics, though, because a test match is 5 days, so that would have to be a host country doing it, and the other countries going out there over a 3-4 month period. That would be a very long tournament, and I'm not sure if that would work. But it has been put forward. But we already have one-day international tournaments and T20 World Cups and World Championships. We've got the Cricket World Cup next year. We've got a T20 World Cup at the moment. So I'm not sure if Test cricket would work. The only way you could do that is if you had a host nation, like a Football World Cup or a Rugby World Cup, where, let's say, Pakistan or India is the host, England, Australia, and Pakistan go and visit maybe Bangladesh and Sri Lanka as well, because there's some good test sides. Get the West Indies in, have a qualification, like a 2-tier qualification, where the team that finishes last has to play a playoff against the team that's top of the next group of 4, 5, 6 nations. That is feasible, but it's unlikely because the format of Test cricket being a 5-day match at the maximum end. We already have enough. We already have 2 World Cups in the T20 and the one day. So I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about England. I understand that you think England will balance, and they will at some point. But back in 1999, we were the bottom of the Test rankings. We were below Zimbabwe in '99. So 19 years ago, England were useless. What we've had is a golden generation for over a decade and a half. And every test side goes through a period of time where they're not very good. The West Indies in the 80s and the 90s were brilliant. They're now right at the bottom of the test rankings, but 20 years ago they were at the top. Every international team or even club team will go through a period of success and less success. At the moment, England's on a cusp of, okay, are we going to completely have to rebuild, or have we got enough just to add a few pieces and evolve the team? That's my view on it. That's my personal view on it. I think England's at a crossroads where they're not as good as they were, and they could get worse. They could get better. I'm not saying that you're wrong, that they're not going to bounce back. Edgbaston is a completely different wicket. The pitch doesn't slope like it does at Lords. It's a more open ground as well, with the shape of the stands. But in Birmingham, there's a big Pakistani community, second and third generation British Pakistanis. It's going to be like a home test match for the Pakistani team. There's going to be that many of their countrymen or people of Pakistani origin supporting them in the test match. England's job is to get the crowd on their side. So if they're going to bat, they've got to excite and score quickly. Basically, next test match is going to be really. It's going to be basically playing at a neutral venue where think of it like a World Cup, as say in Australia or the West Indies like a couple of years ago. It's going to be so many green and white flags there because of the Pakistani community in Birmingham, and I know Birmingham very, very well. It's going to be exceptionally interesting. With the way England are playing as well, I think they're lacking complete confidence in themselves. There's allegations about match fixing now floating around that have come out the last couple of days. I think that's affecting some of the players, and the Ben Stokes saga. Why don't I go watch the game? Because I live 200 miles from Birmingham, pretty much. I live 120 miles south of Birmingham, so I have work as well next week. There's no logistically, I cannot get to Birmingham to watch a session. Cannot. I'm sorry. If I could, if there was a test match at the Oval, which I might do some of the India. I might go to the Oval Test match against India for the day later in the summer, but I can't get to Birmingham easily. It's the logistics. I don't drive. My motorcycle isn't great. It's only a little 125cc, so there's no way logistically I could do that. What's wrong with Stokes? Ben Stokes. Well, last year he got arrested for obviously getting in that fight, and his form has completely collapsed since then. I personally think he should not have gone on the Ashes series. I think he shouldn't have played in New Zealand. He hasn't really done much in the IPL. He hasn't done much at all, really. But he's got a court date coming up. He could get a prison sentence. It's I don't know I think he shouldn't be in the side at the moment. Firstly, his form's gone. So if you're doing it on form, he shouldn't be there. But he's the vice captain, so he's part of the leadership group. That creates a problem. And then if he's in that position, then just get him out of there and get another vice captain, because I think captaincy and leadership is a problem. I don't think Joe Root is the right choice of captain. I think having Alistair Cook's in the side, okay, yeah, his batting has improved somewhat, but he's not consistent. He'll have one good innings and one bad innings, or one good match and one bad match, such as the first test. He was good in the first innings, useless in the second. Gets out cheaply as well, plays shots that from an experienced batsman. What are you playing? What are you doing? Wafting outside your leg stump or your off stump and trying to drive into a ball that doesn't need to be driven, needs to be left. Australia themselves are in a bit of a crisis. I mean, there's a lot going on in cricket that isn't good. And that is a concern. There's a lot going on that isn't great right now. And there's a lot of negative press. England, I don't know what you do to fix it. I think they need to look at the selectors. They need to look at the structure of the ECB, so behind the scenes, away from the game, so the administration. They need to look at coaching as well, because the batting coach clearly isn't doing his job properly, because then why do they keep going through so many upper order batsmen? And why is it Alistair Cook never can seem to get dropped, but everyone else does? I don't think that's right. I think maybe you should look at Cook. Maybe Cook is the problem. Some of the batting technique, that comes down to coaching a little bit, because these guys in county cricket have been brilliant. They come to test level and then their quality just disappears. That's down to coaching. The bowling attack is all right, but they're having to bowl extra overs they're having to bowl longer sessions, Anderson, Broad, to try and reduce but combat because they've got a weak back line. The opposition is just outbatting them, so they're trying to battle a losing battle. Yeah, Root is too passive. He's very passive. He seems almost like he's overwhelmed by the responsibility and the role he is doing. I think he's a bit on the young side. He's younger than me, so that's a lot of pressure to put on a young player. Because I'm nearly 30. So that's a lot of pressure to put on a young player in a position of authority in that situation. Sometimes it is good to have a very relaxed captain. And hello, Leeds Rhinos forever fan. Hello. Root. It sometimes, like I will say this, sometimes having a relaxed captain that is relaxed and calm in a pressure situation is a good thing. You don't want to lose your head in a pressure situation, but he's doesn't seem to be acting right on his gut or aggression. There's no right, sorry, you're going in. There's none of that. It's more like, yes, that's it. He's too quiet. He doesn't seem to be imposing himself on the team. He doesn't seem to have those conversations with the umpires. Broad and Anderson, they are two very experienced players. Very, very experienced. They will be giving him a lot of feedback about field settings and about how the ball is moving. They're very they will be good, squad mates for a captain. They can give a lot of feedback on the outfield feels a little bit dry out on the outfield because they're ones who field on the boundary a lot of the time. So they can give feedback on how the outfield is playing. They can give a feedback on, is it a bit damp in the outfield? Is it dry in the outfield? Is the ball coming at them quicker when there's a cover drive or when a batsman is driving away? So they can give a bit more feedback on the fielding as well because they're bowlers. They know how they want their field set for a particular batsman or a particular session. Let's say the overcast condition at Lords, you want to swing the ball a little bit. So they're great feedback to have because they've been around the side longer than Root has. They can give them an idea on how to help with the dressing room and lead in the dressing room and have that conversation with the others around. How to deal with those big name players. I think Ben Stokes is a clear distraction because of the issues he's had outside of the game. I think having Cook, an ex-captain, who also was he was calm, but he was also quite quiet as well. He wasn't an extrovert captain. He didn't shout and scream at times. I think that's a distraction for Joe having an ex-captain there. I'm not sure the leadership group is right. That includes Ben Stokes as vice captain. That's wrong. I think that should be possibly Broad, a more experienced player. You've got to look at the middle order. Bairstow's been dropped, so Joss Butler's in. That's another experience. I mean, the team doesn't look actually that experienced. If I'm brutally honest, they're lacking a bit. But I don't know who else. I don't know who else could actually step up and be captain, unless you want to put Stuart Broad in as captain, maybe because he's got that more experience. He's a bit more passionate, so I don't know. But the issues go further deeper than who should be captain. It's also the structures behind the scenes, and there is something going on within the structure of the ECB and selection and coaching. So away from the game on the field, in the dressing room and in the administrative offices, and away from the game, there's problems in the English cricket setup. There are problems. I'm not saying that it's a quick fix, but we've got to look at some of the players who are performing quite well in first-class county cricket, and a lot of them are getting overlooked. And for some reason, Cook is undroppable, even though his form is crap at times. Gary Bannon's not a bad player, but they don't. For some reason, the selectors refuse to drop Alistair Cook, and he's too inconsistent at the moment. He'll have, as I say, this Test match, first innings he had a good score, and he was the highest scorer in the England side in the first innings. Second innings, barely scored. I think got 4 runs and got out. So he's not a consistent run scorer anymore. His form is completely. He's getting near the end of his career. His form is gone, but he seems to be undroppable. And I think that's wrong. I think they need to look at possibly giving get Cook out and put maybe Gary Balance back in, because Gary Balance has proven he can swing the willow. Do I support Leeds? No, I don't. I'm not a Super League fan in the sense that I support a team in the Super League. I support a team in the NRL. I do like rugby league though, but I'm not a Leeds fan though. If I was to follow any team, it would probably be Huddersfield. There's a few players who play for Huddersfield that I like more than other players at other teams. But I'm a Canberra Raiders fan in the NRL, and they're in a bit of a middling situation as well. Yeah, Eunice Khan. It was difficult to because of experience to possibly drop him, because the image that would give to the fan base. But Alistair Cook, I think they might have to take him out the side, even if it's for a test match, just to give someone else a chance in the upper order and see if that can improve things. Yes, I did watch the UEFA Cup final, I watched the Europa League and the Champions League. I watched both finals. My review videos are up on the channel, and I've done a lot of videos linked to the Champions League and the and the Europa League. So they're both on the channel in the football playlist. So if you want to check them out, feel free to do so. There's other linked videos in to do with the aftermath of the Champions League final, which I'll discuss later on if you guys want. Hockey isn't exactly well covered in this country at all. So how did you get into ice hockey in the first place? This is a very interesting question. I have answered this question before, but not on necessarily live stream. But I have talked about it before, about why I enjoy it. It's because my dad was in the British Army, and every so often, if you're in the British Army, you go out to Canada on combined NATO exercises into Calgary and Edmonton in Alberta. And he would come back, and he's obviously been invited, because the armed forces, they get a lot of respect out there. They get guided games for like half price tickets or for free as guests of honour. So we saw some games out there, and a few of his Canadian colleagues used to play hockey. So he was a sports mad man. My dad was, when he was alive. He was an ex non-league football player for Dorchester Town. So he was sports mad. We had the early days of Sky. We had cable, and he would come back to England, and he would come on leave. And I used to watch the NHL. I think the first year I watched the NHL was the year that the San Jose Sharks entered the league, or the Anaheim Ducks. So I was basically starting to watch the NHL at the start of the modern expansion era, and I've been watching it ever since. Obviously, my local team were one of the best teams in the country, in Bracknell Bees. They won the old Super League title in 2000. That's big local news. That was national news because it was on Sky at the time. And the women's team here have won 7 titles in a row. So we have a very successful team 2 miles from my house. And if you've seen some of my jersey videos, I do have a lot of jerseys, and occasionally in some of my live streams I wear my hockey jerseys, which is too hot at the moment to wear a hockey jersey. It's like 25 degrees, 30 degrees, and I'll die. But I've been following it since '92. I enjoy it because there's no faking it, there's no diving, there's no this. If you simulate, if you embellish, if you throw yourself in ice hockey, you get a penalty against you, and you're embarrassed in front of your teammates, and they put you in the penalty box. It's such a brutal sport as well. You play hurt, and you pretend you're less hurt than you play hurt, and you're hurt, but you play on. You're missing teeth, you've got cuts, you've got eyes out here, and they play on. There's none of this diving and rolling around like Ramos did to get Mane booked in the Champions League final, for example. It is a hard man sport. It is exceptionally a hard man sport. You have to think that these guys play hurt most of the season, and in the off season they have their surgeries, like a shoulder operation, a knee replacement, and then they go back and play again and hurt themselves some more. A few of my mates play the sport as well, played youth hockey or currently play now. So I've got a lot of mates who are involved in the sport. My mate's dad is a sponsor of the local team, and I've got friends who are involved, and subscribers who are involved with their local teams. I've had a friend who's worked for a rival team in the match night team. So I know a lot of people who are involved in either working at local ice rinks, playing, administrating, cheerleading, all sorts. So I'm very involved myself as a fan. I've got a lot of mates who are involved in the supporters clubs of teams, and then do the programs and the podcasts and the media stuff. But I've been watching it since '92. The Ramos Salah incident, there were some very salty Liverpool fans who signed a petition to get Ramos, suspended. and he got away with one. Had that been a final in where VAR was used, he gets booked or sent off. If that happens in the World Cup, he's booked. It comes down to the referee and the fact that VAR wasn't me. If that was in the World Cup and that was Egypt, Spain, and Salah is pulled over like that, that would be a booking for Ramos, and depending on the referee, could be a red card because he has injured the player. The injury, as I said, more of a contact injury. He was lucky that he didn't break anything. Bit of a sprain, bit of a muscle bruise on the muscle and the ligament. Not as serious as it could have been, but could have had a more serious injury. But he had to leave the field. If that is ice hockey or rugby, that could be a citable offence where you get banned retrospectively. Football doesn't really have that, which is a problem. That's something football needs to look at. If a player is deliberately injured another player, should they be retrospectively banned? But that's something football needs to catch up on, is the retrospective banning for violent conduct. Rugby and ice hockey do have it. So if the referee misses an offence, but it's picked up on, let's say, the video, but they missed the penalty, so they can't go back and give a penalty 2-3 minutes later. They can put them on report. They can cite them. They do, and then the match night people can have a look at various things. Look at the footage. They can look at, okay, where's the principal point of contact? Has he gone in? Has he just mistimed it? Is it a deliberate act? They will have a hearing. The player has to answer, did he mistime it? Was it deliberate? You have to listen to look at all the evidence, but they can suspend players days after the incident. Early prediction on next year's Champions League winner. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a Spanish club. It wouldn't surprise me if it's Atletico or Barcelona. I think Real Madrid, they didn't look at their best the other night. And there are rumours that Bale and Ronaldo want out, or they want to buy Neymar, but to get Neymar, to get the money together, they either got to sell Bale, Ronaldo, or both. And I think that weakens the side. Kane is always going to be linked to a move away from Tottenham until Tottenham win a trophy. It is hard. Man City have failed in Europe. They got to a semi-final under Pellegrini a couple of years ago. Guardiola, they've regressed. So I don't know. For some reason, under Guardiola, Man City have regressed in Europe. Pellegrini got them further in Europe than any manager previously under the Sheikh Mansour era. And under Guardiola, they regressed, and they had a massive collapse against Liverpool in the quarterfinal, complete and utterly ripped apart. Barcelona, there's issues in Barcelona because they have got some key players retiring at the end of this season, and Messi has hinted he might end up back in Argentina at Boca Juniors or River Plate to play out his career. And if there's buffering, that's down to my internet. I can't control that unless I completely move downstairs, and it's just too hot to move around. So I'm going to proceed as much as I possibly can, and if it continues to buffer, then we'll have to look at possibly turning on my bloody plug socket might help, because my battery is probably why my battery was probably dying. Let's see if turning the plug socket on helps, because I was running out of battery. That could be why I was buffering. We've had some technical issues in the last few live streams, so we're trying to work through them and figure out what's causing the interference with my internet. Okay, let's have a look. Messi's a better player. Ronaldo's obviously won more Champions Leagues and has won an international title with his country. Messi's more of a team player, though. He will assist his teammates more. He's less selfish. But they're still nowhere near close to the greatest of all time, which is Pele. I can't stand when people say Messi's the greatest of all time. He hasn't won an international tournament with his nation. He's failed to win international tournaments with Argentina. Pele, you'll never get close to Pele for the amount of games and goals. Pele. So when people say Messi or Ronaldo, yeah, those two players, yeah, they're contemporaries. You've got to put Neymar into that conversation. There's a three-way thing now, but I still think Pele is far beyond them. And there's other players that used to play for Brazil and Argentina in the 70s who I think are better players. You've got to look at 70s South American football. And in fact, football in the 70s, from 1970 to 1986, I think was the prime time of football. You could say 66 to 86 was literally those World Cups and Euros in that period, and those close Copa Americas between 66 and 86. That's when football, I think, was at its most skillful and at its best. and I have got books on the subject. I've got videos, DVDs, all sorts. And I'm gonna have to say Pele, followed by Rivellino as two of the best players. And everyone forgets who Rivellino is. He's the guy with the mullet and the mustache. He played in the number 11 shirt and then a number 10 shirt for Brazil. So Pele, 1970, was the number 10. Rivellino was the number 11. And then 4 years later, Rivellino was the number 10 because Pele had retired. They were the two. Their combinations, especially in the semi-final in 1970 against Uruguay when Rivellino, Tostão, and Pele combined brilliantly together for Pele to go round the goalkeeper, make a fool out of him, and he still misses the goal. Where's Bale going? Bale, the only club that could really afford his wages, really, because Chelsea do have a lot of debt, and I have some Chelsea fans who are subscribers to the channel that I do also follow their channels as well. It's good. The only club I can see him is Man City. They're the only club I can see. Possibly Man United at a push because he's worked with Mourinho. But I honestly could not tell you. He might even end up like someone like PSG or Monaco because they have money. But he has hinted that he wants more first team starts. He's also not happy with the amount of time as a sub. He's getting two. He's basically given 2 barrels at Zidane. Whether the Zidane has gone right, because you got to see Zidane's celebration when he scores those 2 goals. You can tell he's very happy with the player and Bale's performance. I think that's more of a hint to Zidane. You want to play me more next season? Come on. It's sort of a veiled hint, but he has worked with Mourinho, so I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up at Man United. But Man City, I think, is the only club that could really realistically pay his wages. Because even though Gareth Bale is apparently a very nice guy, I can't see him wanting to take a wage cut from the $500,000 a year or $500,000 a week he's on, or whatever it is. He's on silly money. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to England, it'd be Man City or Man United. I can't see him going anywhere else. I don't think Chelsea, not with Abramovich's visa problems and the issues around that. It'll be Man United or Man City. We have an Oxford United fan, I believe. Yeah, Oxford United is one of my local clubs. I don't live too far from Oxford. I live near Reading, between Reading and Slough. I'm not actually that far from Oxford. It only takes about an hour for me to go to Oxford. I've got a few friends who are Oxford United fans as well. So I think Oxford United are a decent sized club. They've got a good fan base. The rivalry between Swindon Town and Oxford United is interesting. I like that little rivalry. People forget about the lower league rivalries in football because some of them are more fun to watch than Man United, Man City. The lower league rivalries are brilliant. So I might have to have a little look at Oxford United, track them next season because I'm tracking several clubs. I've decided to track a few clubs next season and do videos on those clubs. Even though I don't support them, I want to see how they progress and perform in the league there, and look at their results and how they're playing and the what's happening with them because that's what I feel. So I might have to put Oxford United in. Yeah, but Swindon were in the Premier League once. That's what I've got to mention. Swindon Town were in the Premier League years and years ago, in like 93, 94. They were in the Premier League, which I find amazing. But we try and keep the chat pretty clean, just for future reference. I understand your passion there because they are your local rivals, but we try and keep the chat a little bit more clean. And last night there were some idiots who were talking about some disgusting stuff. But let's have a look. What's my preferred starting 11 for England? I would have Pope in goal because he's had the best league form this season, and I will go with form on this. Centre back's going to be a disaster because Cahill's got to start at centre back. Who do you have his centre back partner with? I don't have a clue. Stones is mistake ridden, and Phil Jones is useless and never fit. I would have a front three actually. I wouldn't play with Kane up front by himself. I think I'll have Vardy down the right and Rashford down the left. I'll have Lingard and Sterling in behind with Henderson supporting them. And then it gets a bit more difficult in defence. It gets a bit more difficult in defence. I think we could either go with the back three with 2 wing backs, or we go with the back four. I still would have three up front. I'd have a 4-3-3 lineup really. You can just attack quicker with it, and you're still defensively solid. I'd have a 4-3-3 kind of lineup with Henderson or Dyer in there. I think Henderson's I think classed as the vice captain for the team, so Henderson will probably get more starts. Dyer will probably be a roving midfielder. Lingard or Sterling just a bit deeper. Sterling up the middle, maybe have a diamond formation, although we did try that under Sven. But I'd have three up front. I'd have Rashford down the left, Vardy down the right, Kane up the middle. That would terrorise defences. Kane's not the quickest, but the other two can make the space for Kane. That's the thing. Kane doesn't have the pace. So if you've got Vardy or Rashford making those runs in behind, that pulls the defenders around. Kane gets that space around the D, and then he can do his stuff. And Vardy has got a rocket he's a 2-footed, well, he's got a rocket of a right foot and he can ping it with his left as well. So that's what I would go with up front and attack with pace. We're not good enough to pass through teams. We're good at running at teams. Counter attacking is our strength. Sort of like Liverpool with their high press with the 4-3-3 that Liverpool, the three up front that Liverpool had. It was reasonably effective in the first half, even with Mo Salah's injury against Real Madrid. And look how they did to Man City. We'll see. We'll see what happens long term, but I'm not. I think Pope won't get the start. I think it'll be Pickford, but I'll go with Pope because he's had a much better season than any other England goalkeeper. He's got his team into Europe. He's got a high save percentage. He's got a high win percentage. And if I'm honest, that's who I'll go with. I'll go with a goalkeeper that's on form. And with Pickford's last game for Everton, which was an absolute disaster, definitely go with Pope in goal. And Zukic and Dzeko doesn't have the pace really to trouble defences. He's more of a Harry Kane type, which you need that faster striker going beyond. So I'm not sure if Bale leaves Real Madrid or Ronaldo, I don't think there's enough pace for Dzeko to be effective with his teammates. Mandzukic, decent player, would buy and want to get rid of him. That's the thing. But they do need Navas looks very hopeless in goal, and there's been a reason why Atletico and Barca are better than Real is goalkeeping. They have better goalkeeping. De Gea used to play for Atletico. If he was to go to Real Madrid, that might cause a riot. But De Gea's made references before about wanting to leave Man United at various points every summer. He's made veiled references. He's not happy, or his wife's not happy because she's complaining about how crap the weather is and she hates Manchester. But the World Cup will be a big teller. How De Gea performs. If De Gea has a bad World Cup, or Spain in general have a bad World Cup like the last one, that could, I don't know, may not be so good. If he has a good World Cup and really performs and drags Spain through, we shall see. But Spain 4 years ago were not on the ball. They were completely ripped apart by teams. They looked absolutely all over the place. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with De Gea. I don't think Mandzukic and Dzeko end up at Real Madrid. I think Dzeko is quite happy at Roma. The Italian game suits his style of play. Mandzukic, possibly. But again, I think the German style of play suits him, and he spent most of his career in Germany. So it'd be weird for him going to a Spanish football in the Spanish style. It doesn't suit his play either. But this is the problem with Real Madrid. They're called the Galacticos for a reason. They get a lot of big name players, and they don't always gel. They don't always gel well together. What Zidane's doing now is getting big name egos to gel. Years past, they've had players like Figo and Zidane and Beckham, and all these star players could not gel as a team. May have all got on in the dressing room, could not play well as a team. That's the trick. And Zidane is in a very tough position, keeping all these egos happy. And with Bale wanting possibly to leave, Ronaldo wanting possibly to leave, they want to bring Neymar in. Neymar's a bit of a prickly character, a bit of a sandpaper type, can be disruptive. I can't see how that's going to be easy for Zidane long term to try and keep all these players happy. And Real Madrid have shown in the past that they normally go through managers quite quickly. So the fact he's lasted 3 seasons or 2 and a bit seasons is saying something that he's lasted that long. On the Walker Stokes Maguire, I wouldn't go. I would go with Maguire. I wouldn't go with Stones. I'll go with Maguire and Cahill. Walker is what it is. I don't see him as possibly a right centre back. We have a Celtic fan. Hello, I'm glad I'm a Celtic fan. Coventry got through. I thought Exeter might show a bit more. But again, whenever it comes down to a please record your reaction, mate. You got to do what you got to do and come back. But when it comes to a playoff final or any final, you got to look forward to the next season and go right. We can learn more from a defeat than a victory. I think Liverpool can learn a lot from what happened on Saturday in the Champions League final. They can learn a lot from that game. They did things very effectively in the first half. The second half, not so much. And it wasn't Salah getting injured that did it for him. It was putting Lallana in his place. They need to find someone who's very similar to Salah in the youth setup, who's quick, pacey, and can do the same role. Because Lallana is not a good player. Lallana is not a good player at all. Right, so you're asking about the preferred 11 for England World Cup. I wouldn't know. De Gea, he's been linked to Real Madrid every season for the last 3 years. I couldn't tell you whether he goes there or not, and if he does, would that be a good or bad move? I don't know. And of course, the transfer market is overinflated, so Man United would make a lot of money on a good goalkeeper. He's one of the best goalkeepers, but I don't think he's worth the money that will be asked for him. There is a dictum in professional sports: never pay your goaltender in ice hockey or football the most wages at a club. Real Madrid won the Champions League. I cannot believe you didn't know that. It was Real Madrid won 3-1. But yeah, you want to be very careful when it comes to goalkeepers and paying money and paying their wages, because you do not want your goalkeeper to be classed as your star player, because that can lead to all sorts of problems. But a lot of football talk here, for those who've joined a bit later, we've discussed cricket, a lot of cricket, and now we're discussing football and bits and pieces. Now that the League One playoff final is over, that now means that the European regular season is over. The club season is officially over. However, until the World Cup is finished, the transfer market isn't technically open until one thing about the second round. So the official season isn't over until the World Cup is, I think, halfway through. So we've got a couple of these international friendlies coming up. And we've seen in the Champions League final, and we've seen in the FA Cup final and other games, players are still getting injured. And that's affecting World Cup squads and World Cup preparations, because if a player is going to be injured for a friendly, they're going to have to rest him, assess his health. Like Mo Salah, they're saying he should be fine for Egypt's World Cup. He should be able to play. It's not as serious as first thought. It's a bruised muscle. It's not. So the injuries are still happening. So even if your country didn't qualify for the World Cup and you're watching and you want to see how your favourite players do, a lot of players were still getting injured, and some players are getting injured now in training camps for the World Cup for the national sides. Players are going down with injuries. And that brings back up the debate: is the season too long? Is there too many games? Should there be a break? Does the game need to change? All sorts. I think this World Cup will be an exceptionally open in the sense the games will be more open than, let's say, South Africa. South Africa was a very boring World Cup, very not great to watch. I'm hoping the goals per game ratio keeps going up, and I'm hoping that more attacking or counter-attacking football is played. I think there's some of the nations that are there for the first time. This is going to be a big experience for them, like Panama. It's going to be a big step up for them and see how they do. Some of the styles of football is just attack at all costs. Some football is attack at all costs, which is the type of football I like to see. Just go for it and enjoy. Play with freedom. This is why I like watching the World Cup highlights and the videos from the 70s and the 80s of the Brazils and the Hollands and the Argentinas, and because those sides were brilliant. I mean, Holland never won the World Cup, but Brazil and Argentina, but some of the football they played was absolutely just pure joy to watch in a sense that it was action packed. So as a neutral, you even if Brazil lost, you would still be entertained because they would go out and just show off their skills and try and score as many goals as possible. Defensively, that wasn't a thing. Defending, that wasn't a thing for Brazilian football. Goalkeeping, calamitous. Goalkeeping structures, not a thing in Brazilian football back in the 70s and the 80s. It was fun watching Brazilian teams play. So watching your Zicos and your Rivalinos and your Socrates play, it was an absolute breath of fresh air. Now, I think players are overcoached a little bit and the flair's been coached out a little bit and there's less flow and freedom um, than there was in the 70s and the 80s. That's when football, that's when you could see some amazing goals and some amazing skills. Now it's a little bit more too much structure, I think. Sometimes a bit of less of structure and just let it flow. That can be fun. Can be really, really fun. But it is what it is. Everyone's going to say they've got a favourite period of a sport and an era of a sport, but looking back at the match replays and some of the highlights reels and the goal scored, the 70s and the 80s was so much fun. The 90s got overly defensive, and then in recent years it's become more exciting again, but it's not the same. But I'm hoping that this World Cup will be exceptionally open. There's going to be a lot of goals. Even if it's a 0-0, I'm hoping that there's some really good goalkeeping as well, excitement. So I'm looking forward to the World Cup in that sense. I have my concerns about the World Cup, and I have concerns about where the direction of things are going. But I'm really looking forward to a very open, exciting, expansive style of play. The way Liverpool play is win at all costs. They just go for it. The way some teams play is just sod it. We'll just go all out attack. And sometimes that's the best way to be. Some teams and some managers are overly defensive and overly cautious. Mourinho. And fans are complaining that they just want to see all out attack football and they don't care about defence. But we'll see what happens. There's some interesting stories to come out of this World Cup. There's some interesting things to discuss. There's some interesting things that will happen. There's a lot still to happen. There's still friendlies to be played, so players can still get injured. Teams have until I think June 2nd to name their official squad. So the backups will that'll be the cut-off point for emergency call-ups on the backup lists. So there's a lot to happen. There's a lot to consider and think about in the next 4 or 5 days. And then of course the friendlies start, and then that gives us an idea of how the lineups will be. Who will begin starting lineups for teams. I mean, I was asked what's my preferred. Well, yeah, if you want me to talk about rugby, please ask some rugby questions. I mean, we've got the summer tours down in the Southern Hemisphere in rugby union. And the Wales games have been broadcast on free-to-air TV, which is good. And of course, the rugby season is now over as well. The rugby league is obviously mid-season, but the rugby union season is now over. And we've got the international summer rugby union internationals. They're going to be interesting because that gives us an idea for the World Cup next year of squad selections, up and coming players, who's going to get selected. What coaches are thinking about changing in tactics. And it is interesting. I mean, obviously, rugby league is a difficult one in this country because it is very rarely on free to air unless it's the Challenge Cup. And I did a video on the Toronto Wolfpack and the match against Warrington, and I was very interested to hear from rugby league fans about how they felt that the Toronto Wolfpack have cost themselves some English fans because of the style of rugby they play. And I came back with, they play in the Championship. So for Super League fans to see a Championship side play, that's how they play in the Championship. That's what they're used to playing. Even if they've got experienced players, that's what they get away with in the Championship. It's very ingrained in their style of play. Now, it's obviously working in Canada. It's great. They've decided to grow the game in North America. Brilliant. I think the NRL could learn a thing or two from the way Super League is deciding to grow the game in North America. But the Super League can learn from the NRL. I think the NRL does do the reffing better with the 2 ref system. They're very strict on the play the ball now. You actually have to play the ball properly, which the Super League is being a bit lax on. And of course, NRL has also got State of Origin, which is one of my favourite times of the year is State of Origin series. I really like the State of Origin. It really pits the best of the best against each other. That's something we could sort of do as County of Origin, like Lancashire, Yorkshire, kind of like a War of the Roses type thing. That could be quite interesting. But I think Super League also needs to start expanding to the south of England, because the issue is rugby union is expanding very well in the north of England and very successfully, because there are teams north of the Midlands that are very good sides, that are very, very successful sides, such as Sale and Newcastle are starting to get back to the top of English rugby as well. And Leeds Carnegie, Yorkshire Carnegie, the rugby union side, they have been in the Premiership before. They can get back there again. Rugby league needs to go to the south of England more, because the London Broncos and the London Scholars, that's about it. That's the teams in the south of England that I can name. They need to consider growing the game down south. There's more money down south, so you could afford to have a team here. If you property market it, get the fans in, they will pay, and that can pay players' salaries. There is a sport, so I think Super League needs to possibly look at expanding or growing the game in the south of England. I think Rugby League it also needs an international governing body, much like FIFA and World Rugby, because the NRL is on one set of rules, Super League's on another. Then you've got international rules, which are on another set of rules altogether. They need to standardise the rules for Rugby League across the world. I think they need to adopt the 2 ref system in Super League. I think they need to adopt the 2 ref system in internationals. They need to look at a variety of things, because they are losing ground to rugby union worldwide and football. Rugby league could do better in how it promotes itself, how it keeps fans coming, and how it grows. They really could. I know that may sound a bit harsh, but I think rugby league, while I enjoy it more than rugby union because it's a quicker paced game, they could promote the game better with non-traditional markets, with the casual fan, with the TV rights. They could do it better, and they could look at moving into areas that don't normally have rugby league to try and grow the game, to get more fans and more viewers watching. Because if they don't, then they're going to lose further ground in some markets. Because in Australia, it's the second sport. In England, it's the third sport. So it's not dominating the sports market such as other sports, and it is losing ground. So it needs to think a bit outside the box and look at ways to grow the fan base, grow the game, get more people playing it, get more involvement with schools at school level and youth level. Look at standardising the game rules across the world. Not either they go with the NRL rules or the Super League rules, but they have to go with a rule set. And we've got to look at why the Super League is losing its best players to the NRL, and the players we get back from the NRL. There are some superstars in that, such as Ben Barber, but for the most part, they are either towards the end of their careers and they're coming here to keep playing at a slightly lower level, or they haven't quite cracked the NRL yet and they're still developing as players. So they're not the ultimate like for like. We don't have a Cameron Smith type player coming over here. We don't have a Cooper Cronk type player coming over here to play. We do have a Ben Barber in the Super League, but we need more players like Ben Barber to come from the NRL over here, because too many of our good players are going over there. I mean, most of our forward pack plays in the NRL. Most of our backs play in Super League. I mean, can the NRL keep sustaining itself as it is? I don't know. Their next collective bargaining agreement is in 2021. That's when the next TV deal is signed. So there it is. Right, so let's have a little recap of where we're at. We've covered cricket. We've covered football, a lot of football, and we have now covered rugby league and rugby union. So yeah, there's that. No, a lot's going on at the moment with various bits and pieces in sport, and I'm cold. And yeah, there's a lot to talk about, and it's what it is, really. I'm I'm just going to check my data. Let's see what's going on the old analytics quickly. Let's see what's going on. And who's watching what, because I know there's a lot been happening in sport. We've got the tennis at the moment with the French Open taking place, and that's great fun. That is really great fun. The French Open, I think that is an amazing tournament. It's not my favourite surface though. So that's something. It's not my favourite surface. It's not what I enjoy the most. I do enjoy Wimbledon the most as a tournament when it comes to to tennis. But at the same time, I think if someone can beat Rafa Nadal, that'd be brilliant. That would be pretty good. Right, nothing happened there. Okie dokie. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm really really interested to see if Rafa Nadal can actually. Hello, Mike. We've just been discussing rugby league, and I was just talking about the French Open tennis. Um, I will check out your video on the playoff final. I mean, I have some mates who are Coventry City fans, so it would be nice to do a video on them and see how they do. There are some teams I will be deliberately following next season. Even though I don't support them, I'll be following to see how they do because of promotion, relegation, or missing out on playoffs. That's something I will be doing. Um, But it is interesting. Now, that was the most one-sided playoff final. All the other playoff finals that have taken place have been very close, very cagey. That one, the scoreline gap is the biggest. But what other questions have you got to ask me, Mike? Because you've surely got to have questions to ask. Because I'm more than happy to answer them. Really, I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, we've been asked like what my starting 11 for England would be. I'd have Pope in goal and I'd have three up front, but it is what it is. I mean, I don't know how far England can get in the tournament. I'm not expecting them to work miracles. I'm not expecting them to pull rabbits out of hats and win the thing. But I want to see some of these young players do well. I want to see some of these young players prove to their manager that they should get more game time than they are. I think that is vital. And it's time for Harry Kane not to fall apart in under a pressure situation. Um, and it's time for some of these Tottenham players to actually play better because in pressure games they tend to have a meltdown for whatever reason. They tend to struggle. Who do you think will be the surprise of the tournament? Honestly, I think that the tournament itself is going to be full of them. I think the VAR could be a surprise. And some of the officiating, that's going to be interesting because of the lack of officials that are trained in the use of VAR going. Apart from the Germans, there's no one else going. So there's no Australian officials, there's no English officials. So VAR, we'll see if that has any controversy. I think the Russians could surprise us because they're the hosts and they're going to get a boost from being the host nation. Although they didn't do very well in the Confederations Cup, the Russians, as the lowest ranked team, people are writing them off. They are the host nation, so that's going to be an interest. Panama in their first World Cup, that's going to be interesting. You've got Costa Rica again. They had a very good tournament 4 years ago. I think they can grow upon that and expand upon that. So I can see that being an avenue of a surprise. But I'm also interested to see how the South American teams will do because Brazil want to make up for 4 years ago. Argentina, I think, want to actually get their hands on the tournament again for the first time in 32 years. Hands on the trophy. It's going to be a complicated one, but I want to see some of these England players actually do well. Some of these young players. Joel Campbell, that's down to Arsenal. That's down to Wenger and his selection policy and transfer policy at Arsenal. Joel Campbell was a decent player. He could have played for us, ironically. That's the irony. He could have actually played for us. The reason why he's nowhere is because Arsenal have mismanaged the transfer market and they've not developed players properly. There's a reason why some of their good players are leaving Arsenal. There's a reason why Arsenal had to bring in Unai Emery. They haven't spent wisely in the transfer market. They haven't spent enough. They haven't kept a lot of their youth players. Or when they do give youth players a chance, they look nervous and unsure because the style of play clearly doesn't suit what they're doing in the youth academy or whatever it may be, or they're just not. It's just not working. Arsenal had a lot of injury problems as well, and we will see what players surprise us. I want to see the young England players have a good tournament and just express themselves and just play attack football. I think we, as a country, I think the media in the past have put too much pressure on a group of players. Now there's no expectation, and a lot of fans are being very cynical about England's chances. I think Harry Kane's press conference, where he says he wants to win the World Cup, is one thing. It's been misconstrued that saying we are going to win it. I think we've got to be more realistic with what this team can achieve. As long as they can get out of the group and win at least one of the knockout games, that is an achievement in itself. They need to get out of the group this time, and they need to win the first, at least get through the second round and win a knockout game. That's what they need to do. Apart from that, I can't see them getting past the quarterfinals. If we do get past the quarterfinals, that will be a bit of luck on the way, and we haven't had a lot of luck in tournaments since 1990. Loftus-Cheek, yes, he has had a good season out on loan at Palace. I think Palace will take the option to sign him in the summer. They'll be stupid not to. I honestly think they will take the option up and signing him full time. But there's some good young English players who are not playing for the big six clubs that are not getting selected, and that is a problem. It's because of the attractiveness of the club you play for. John Joe Shelby, why is he not on the plane? He had a very good run for the last 6 months of the season. He was very instrumental in driving Newcastle forward and making Newcastle progress and develop. I would have taken him over some of the other players. I'm surprised he was left out, even off the standby list. I think Southgate's made an error of judgment there with missing out on taking Shelby. But we need to see how they all do. I think Loftus-Cheek is a dark horse in the England squad. I think not a lot's been spoken about him with this England squad. It's more like Raheem Sterling and Rashford and Kane and Dele Alli. Dele Alli, he needs to really avoid getting sent off, because if he does a David Beckham type thing, that could be a disaster. What England need to do, though, is get past that group stage game. They need to get past the second round. They need to at least win one knockout game and get out of the group stage. Because in recent tournaments, that has been a problem, is not only getting out of the group, but also winning the knockout game, and that is a problem. We haven't had a good record. We qualified well and then fallen apart in the tournament, and I don't know why that is. It does surprise me how they have struggled in tournament football, but qualifying, they get through. Tournament falls apart. Oh yeah, dearie me. Increasing. I think we play one or two, but the problem is it's the style we play. We're very good on the counter attack, but when we played Lithuania, for example, we only won 1-0 with a penalty. That was an absolutely poor performance, and this is back in the early days of my channel, so I was a little bit less PG. I was a bit more X-rated in my views, in that I used to F-bomb a lot. But the problem was we were trying to pass through a Lithuanian side that were playing for nothing. They weren't going to qualify. They just set up to basically frustrate and defend. They weren't set up for the counter attack. They were set up to just do 2 banks of 4, or bank of 5 and a bank of 4 and a centre forward and the goalkeeper. and we tried to pass through them, and it was painful. It was like watching treacle drip off a spoon. We cannot pass through teams. If a team is like, okay, because in every game you're going to have that 5-10 minute spell where you're not going to get the ball. If a team like a Panama or a Tunisia is not getting hold of the ball, they're going to sit back. They're going to sit there and zonal mark or man mark, however they do their defending, and they're going to sit there and be organised and say, play through us. If we cannot play through them at pace and we're passing around aimlessly, we're going to have problems. If we can attack at pace quickly, that's why I think Vardy needs to start down the right and Rashford down the left to give those extra options to Kane where they can make space by running in behind where Kane can then drop back. Then we're pulling defenders around. If you look at the FA Cup final, Rashford, and Lingard did not play well. It was very stop-start, no pace to the game. English teams do well with pace. Club teams as well. When the game is played at pace and there's lots of running in behind, there's lots of movement, it's quick passing, goals are scored. When it's just aimless passing around for passing's sake and playing keep ball, they start overcomplicating the play. They're playing too slow. It's easy to read, and the opposition counter attack, and then we're all out of position because players are being very static up the field, and they're not coming back. So we need to, if the opposition are going to sit back for 10, 15 minute spells and maybe get the ball 6 times in that spell with a couple of tackles and maybe a free kick, we need to, when we get the ball, quick, just move quick, get a guy running long and just chip it. If the guy's moving quick, pass it, go on a mazy run, get a guy running at players. Don't start, pass it around. It doesn't work. We need to go quick and incisive. That's where we've had our best success. And the Lithuania game is a prime example of how we can't pass through teams. Because Lithuania were very organised. They had their own chances, but they were very organised. They were very compact. They were communicating well, and they were saying, right, you're going to have the ball for 60, 70% of the game. It doesn't bother us. You're not playing at a fast enough pace for us to get tired. We don't pass the ball quick enough when we have lengthy spells of possession. That's a problem. And Southgate doesn't have a plan B. He doesn't have that John Joe Shelby type player because he hasn't taken him, which I think is wrong, to unlock that defence with a 40, 50 yards crossfield pass to Vardy or to Rashford or to Kane. He doesn't have that midfielder in his locker. So that's a problem. Other issues are, I think, the goalkeeping. I think we need to go with Pope as the starter. I think he goes for Pickford, which I think is a mistake because Pickford's form has deserted him. But he's going to go. I would go with Pope, the Burnley goalkeeper. I would go with Cahill. I think Cahill should be even captain as well, but I'll go with Cahill and Maguire as a centre back pairing. I'll have 4 at the back, not 3. Dele Alli, Eric Dyer, or Henderson. That's a mix. Might have to look at the midfield a little bit. Up front, I would have 3. I would honestly have Kane in the middle, Vardy on the left, Rashford on the right, or Vardy on the right, Rashford on the left. Either way, they're interchangeable, and use their pace to make space. You need to run Sterling down the middle, but the joy is a lot of these players are young. A lot of the opposition players would not have had a lot of scouting knowledge on them, so therefore don't know much about them. So we have the unknown in our favour in the sense that a lot of these players, like Loftus-Cheek, haven't played a lot of Champions League, Europa League football. So they won't have a read on some of our players. The issue is our strikers, all of them are playing the Champions League. And some defences and some players will have a read on them. If anyone won the World Cup, would it be a better achievement than 60? Yes. 66, we had a decent side. When I say a decent side, we had been a good side for a long time. And we only started going to the World Cup in, I think, 58. So we'd only been to 2 previous tournaments because of the FA having reasons of not wanting to do the World Cup, their own reasons, which I think are wrong, but the FA had some political reasons for not going before 58. We had a good crop of players because the Busby Babes was part of the reason why the Lisbon Lions in Scotland, British football in the 60s was in a good place, skill-wise and development-wise and player-wise. We had a good crop of players at the time. We were the host, and that did have an effect. But England in '66 was one of the best teams in the world. So were Germany, so were Brazil, so were Portugal. There were some very good teams at that tournament and some very good players. It would be a real Cinderella story if this England team that we have now was to win. I think the team we have now versus the team we had in '66, no comparison. If those '66 players were alive today and playing today, because some of them are dead now, if they were the looking at the experience, there was a lot of experience in the England side and a lot of youth. They had balanced the side very well with experience and youth. And a lot of those players had won domestic titles, FA Cups. The League Cup was still in its infancy, but the FA Cup had won multiple times. The European Championship Cup. A lot of them played the early days of European, what we now call the Champions League and Europa League football. So they were a very experienced bunch. The team we have now, not so much. But it had taken 2 World Cups to build that squad. It didn't happen overnight. The Busby Babes started in the 50s. The Liverpool revolution that was about to start in Shankly was starting in Liverpool. It had taken a long time of a good 8 years development for that side to have peaked at the right time. And in 1970, the game against Brazil was apparently the best game ever played. England were one of the top sides in the 60s and the 1972. They were a top side. And the 80s England teams were good as well, and the early 90s. It's gone wrong since, I would say, 94 we didn't qualify. So the 80s England was very good, and 1990. 96, 98 were a good crop as well. It takes time to build a winner. It takes 2 or 3 tournaments to get a core to grow together to peak. And in '66, that group of players, they had been building up to '66 from '58. They had been building for the previous 2 tournaments, and they had added and strengthened and developed. And it came at the right time, and the team were a good team anyway. This team, completely underrated, not expected to do anything. And if you were to look at the '66 side and the side now, the England team from '66 hammers the team from 2018. Hammers them. It does. There's not enough winners in that England side. Cahill was the only Chelsea player playing the FA Cup final who's English. Rashford and Lingard didn't have a very good FA Cup final for Man United. That's a worry that they're going to go into a tournament on the back of a bad defeat, lack of morale. Tottenham fell apart in the semi-final when they were leading 1-0, and that's what England have done a lot in the last few tournaments. They've been up in games 1-0 and they've lost 2-1. Happened against Iceland, happens against Uruguay, I believe. It happened against Italy as well. In games, either 1-1 or 1-0 up, and they lose 2-1. England have a habit of not closing out a game or kicking on to win the game. And that's partly due to the Tottenham effect as well. The amount of Tottenham players, good players, that are in the squad that have fallen apart in games and have struggled in pressure situations in a pressure game and haven't quite gone from good to great. They haven't taken that next step, and that's an issue with Tottenham. Yeah, we have. I think the last 2 days, channel's grown quite a bit. I mean, this England side, it has to grow together. They have the youth England side, the England youth side is doing very, very well at the moment. That's a good thing. That's a positive that we can take. Is that the England youth teams at under 17, under 19, under 21 are doing very, very well. That's a positive that we can take forward. Those young players need to be given game time, and this is a chance for some of these young players to prove to their domestic managers, you've got to play me. That's why I think they need to really show something in this World Cup. If they really don't show a lot, then that could damage future development for them and the younger players coming through as well. That's an issue. And it's also a domestic league issue whereby not enough players of native origin are playing first team games in the Premier League and Championship. Southgate, he needs it as a club manager. He was hopeless at Middlesbrough. Player, he was good. He was a good player. But as a manager, I'm not sold on him. I think he's not ruthless enough. He's too matey with the players. He's too nice. Very intelligent guy. He really knows his management stuff. He really knows how to tactically. He knows tactics, but he's a bit too soft for me. You sometimes need that shouty, angry coach. He seems very, very softly spoken, reserved, quiet. He doesn't seem to have that ruthless edge about him that occasionally you need that bit of spite and a bit of sandpaper about a coach to go, this is BS, you're not playing good enough. The fact he did drop Joe Hart and Jack Wilshere, it shows that he does have a bit of steel about him, but it took 2 years to select a permanent captain, and that is not good enough. I think Harry Kane shouldn't be the captain. It should be Cahill or Henderson. And I have been criticised for that as well. But Cahill or Henderson would be a better bet as captain. I don't see Harry Kane as captain material. Then you've got to think it took 2 years to name a permanent captain. That's a problem. If you've taken that long to name a permanent captain, that's not showing decisive action. He's finally taking the decisions now. I think he's taken too long to take some of those decisions. I think some of his selections, not taking John Joe Shelby, I'm not sure what he's doing with that. Rashford and Lingard, I'm concerned with their Man United form towards the end of the season, how inconsistent they were. They looked very unconfident and very frustrated. Ashley Young has a defensive liability. Phil Jones, defensive liability. John Stones, defensive liability. Both Manchester clubs' defensive liabilities. But a lot of the more senior players who could, in theory, play for England have either said they don't want to play for England anymore, or they never get selected. Like Wes Morgan, for example. He's won a Premier League. He's a club captain. Why is he not in the side? Just for leadership purposes. Just for say, like, he's a solid defender who's experienced and has managed to win a trophy. Plus, that's a partnership with Maguire straight away. Automatically got a centre-back partnership that works well at club level. That's won a Premier League. I do not understand why Phil Jones is better than Smalling, and Smalling isn't great. But yeah, but just because Wes Morgan's played for Jamaica, Diego Costa played for Brazil 3 times, and now plays for Spain. It's doable if you get the residency. It is doable. But that's what I mean. Because he's been rejected by England, he's going to play for the country of his father's birth, the country of his birth. That's the problem. When you've got players who could play for a variety of countries and you keep snubbing them, they're going to go, all right, then I'm going to play for... It's like J. Lloyd Samuel, okay? He now passed away. Born in Trinidad, played under 17s and under 19s for England, was snubbed regularly by England, ended up going to play for Trinidad and Tobago. He said, Wilfried Zaha, we could have had a great little winger. He has pace, he has vision, he can finish, he can terrify defenders. He's maybe a bit selfish at times. What is going on with the setup? Because we've snubbed so many players who've said, fine, sod you then. Berahino, prime example of someone who should never play football ever again because he's a little shy. DR Congo he comes from, we could have given him a bit more focus. Again, completely wasted talent because they're not coaching properly. And Southgate's been involved in the youth setting coach-up setup for a while. He has dropped the ball on Zaha. That's why I think there's issues with Southgate. He's let Zaha go. He did not converse with Wes Morgan to get him to go, look, do you want to stay? Do you want to stay with us? And that's the fault of many England managers, is they didn't get defenders like Wes Morgan who've got a good relationship with Maguire. That'll be a brilliant centre-back partnership. They play together week in, week out for Leicester. They've won a Premier League together. Completely mind-boggling. Is it because they play for an unattractive club? That's another thing that I find mind-boggling. Some very good young English players playing for Bournemouth and Southampton and Burnley not getting selected because their club is not a top 6 attractive club that gets loads of airtime going forward. Yeah, Victor Moses. chose Nigeria over England. Not that I'm sold on Victor Moses, but Iwobi, yep. And guess who was in charge of the youth setup at the time they were coming through? Gareth Southgate. That's the concern I have. Is he's snubbed too many young players and hasn't given them a chance, and so they've gone to the country of their mother's birth or their father's birth or where they were born, even if they weren't necessarily born. They're like, it's like Aaron Burchell, who used to play for Leyton Orient. White kid, mum had him on holiday when in Trinidad. He was born on holiday in Trinidad by his parents on holiday, and he played for Trinidad and Tobago. Could have been developed better through the youth system in English clubs. Wasn't given a chance at the high level. Was snubbed a lot at the higher level. Sent out on loan. Ended up playing the lower leagues. Ended up playing for Trinidad and Tobago, 2006. We have a habit of doing this lately, and that's a problem. Wilfred Zaha is the biggest glaring elephant in the room. Southgate, when he was youth, I think at the under-20s, really screwed up that one because he was part of the youth team. And this is an issue: is talent spotting and development of young players. But we are where we are. We've got what we've got. These young players, I think, need to outshine some of the senior players and let them take the shackles off and tell them just attack. Stop defending, just go forward and attack. If we lose 3-0, but we're playing bloody attack football, I think I'll be happier than watching us play a dour, try and pass for a team and lose in the last 5 minutes of the game. If we go out and lose 5-3, but my God, it's been end to end, rather than these dour, slow-paced, predictable play. If these young players just go out and attack, and in attack they're confident, that for me will suit England better long term. If we're too defensive-minded and allow teams to have too much of the ball, they're going to slaughter us. Because we can't pass routines either. Right, let's check this message is coming. I've got people messaging me as well. BT Sport, BT Sport has to change in direction. I think the issue they have is they haven't really done it, because they did say every BT customer would get BT Sport for free if they were on broadband. I'm on broadband. They were free for 2 days. They lied in the small print. They really buggered up. They could have had a free-to-air channel if you're a broadband customer on your Freeview box. They could have done that. They wanted to go for the Ultra 4K HD, which no one really wants to have, really. I mean, how many slow-mo replays do you really want to watch? I see the beats. Really, I just want to watch a game. Some of these replays are too pointless. The fact that they don't have a full broadcast team and they have to borrow presenters and experts from the BBC, Sky, and ITV sums up how crap they are. That no one's willing to sign a full-time contract with BT Sport. It just shows how poor they are. It shows that these presenters and commentators know there's not much future in this for this company, for this media company. That Jake Humphries is now, yeah. Jake Humphries and the woman who was doing the Europa League final, they're full time. The others are all borrowed from Sky, ITV, BBC. They're borrowed from Talksport. They're borrowed from other media. They're borrowed from other TV stations, other media like Premier Sports. They don't have their own dedicated sports team apart from like 3 or 4 presenters, and the rest of their pundits and experts they take on one-off contracts on game day. They go, right, we'll pay you for your appearance fee. They don't have a long-term plan where they have a dedicated their own team like Sky, BBC, and ITV. They're borrowing them, and they're crap. But Jake Humphrey's not a good sportsman anyway. He was crap when he did the F1, and I'm so glad they got rid of him. He's got to be here, and only 10,000 people a day watching, so it's fine. Yeah, 360. Who wants to watch it in like 4K ultra? Like, what? Really? I want to pay $4,000 for a TV. Oh yeah, $4,000 for a 4K Ultra HD TV, right? Which only will work on the latest Xbox. My current Xbox won't work on the new 4K Ultra. It's a stupid TV. Then the standard Freeview box won't work with it. The standard Sky box won't. You have to get like the upgrade. You have to pay even more for something that's crap. I don't think these media companies have realised for the last 10 years, we haven't had a lot of disposable income because of a thing called a financial crash. 4K, well, then you've got a very, very cheap TV then, because my current full HD telly, I got it half price for 180, and mine's a tiny 27-inch. So I don't know where you got that so cheap, but my God, you've done a very, very good bit of buying there, Mike. Good bit of buying. I've seen some of them go for 2, 3, 4 grand. Some of the bigger ones, 3, 4 grand. I've seen them advertised, and it's why would I want to pay that much for a telly? I mean, my first telly cost me a fiver. I got it on a car boot sale. My first telly cost me a fiver until the analog switch over, and I had to bin it because my digibox wouldn't work with it. I had to bin it. I had to get an aerial adapter from the aerial, and it had to go. My last TV, I gave away to a mate. Got that for nothing. That was a freebie from family. My other TV, I got 30 quid from Tesco's. Little Technica, little 12-inch Technica, and the one I've got now, I've had for 3 years. And it's beautiful HD. I've got no problems with it. 180 quid. There's only 3 channels that are UHD. 2 of them are on BT Sport, and no one wants to pay for BT Sport. Chronic. I I don't understand this Ultra HD. I mean, how many slow mo replays do you need where you need to see every single bead of sweat and every single hair on their leg and every single bit of booger coming out their nose? I don't need to see that. I just need to see clear, precise TV and a good, clean image. That's all I want. All I want is just a good, clean image. I don't need to see every bead of sweat and every blade of grass. I don't need to see that. That's what people seem to have lost focus of. They want to have this stupid belief in all this kind of crap. It does my nut. And it's overpriced crap. Well, the thing is, the reason why BT Sport is a problem is they did say when they were launching it that it'd be free for the first year for every BT broadband customer, and it was free for 3 days, and you had to agree to sign a thing. And now it's still $12.99 a month on top of your on top of your internet bill. So your internet bill is like 50, 60 quid a month, and that doesn't cover line rental or TV license. Mark Stoneman, they've got to drop. If they're going to drop someone, drop Alistair Cook. Give these young players a chance. The only way they're going to learn is by playing. Constantly going, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. That's going to piss them off. They're going to have no consistency. They're going to have no way of developing their game. The batting coaches need to be, the coaching staff at England needs to be looked at with batting coaches, fielding, bowling, the whole fucking shebang. And yeah, they tried to get me to sign up to BT Sport on my phone on EE, and I said, no, I'm not, because after 6 months, my phone bill goes through the roof. There's a lot of small print in there they don't tell you about. There's a lot of small print on a contract. I'm on a 24-month contract before I can get my upgrade, and they try to get me to get BT Sport, and I was like, you can start right off. And I'm like, why? It's like, yeah, I've read the small print. I'm not paying on top of that, on top of my bill. I'm not paying for it. I told them to stuff it. I said, I'll have the phone contract. I'm not having. Well, yeah, no, because I've worked in a legal office. I've had mates screwed over. I know. I've been a member of a trade union. My aunt runs her own company. My mum runs her own company. My uncle ran his own company. I'm very used to reading contracts and proofreading stuff. I'm pretty savvy. Like a lot of people do get screwed on contracts. I'm pretty savvy when it comes down to it. Really, I'm not saying that I deliberately go to be anal. I just know my rights. I used to be a salesman. I know what companies upsell and they don't tell you in the small print. Some companies and some providers are very unscrupulous with sort of bending the rules and breaking them without telling you. But because of my mum and my aunt and my uncle all running their own companies and being entrepreneurial in that sense, I've been sort of brought up to read every bit of small print and to make sure you don't get screwed, because if they were to screw a customer and that customer was to not be happy, they could be out of business. Their company's done. So that's for me. I'm pretty smart. One of my mates runs his own company as well, so I know a lot about contract law through my mates and my family. And you've always got to read that small print because a lot of people don't, and then they get screwed. And to be fair, BT Sport doesn't appeal to me. I don't want it. I was very specific. You put BT Sport on my contract, I move elsewhere. And they panicked because I've been a customer with EE and before that T-Mobile for a decade. And I said, you screw me over with putting BT Sport on my contract, or after 6 months it goes up, I'm out of it. I said, I don't want it. And they were like, oh. I said, yeah, I've read your small print. You're going to screw me over. You put that on. I just really got anal with them, and they were like, okay. I said, I've had no problems with you, but you do that, I'm gonna change supplier. I'm gonna change provider. You're going to be done. EE comes very low in performance as well with customer service, very low. I just told them where to stick it if they want to try and upsell. I said, I'm not interested, and they kept trying. So I'm not interested. If you want to upsell, if you keep pushing sell. No, I literally, they were trying to put when I was getting the phone, they tried to get me to get BT a better BT internet deal. I'm not the bill payer in my house, so there's no point in me getting it because it would have to be under my name, and I don't want to have it under my name, if you know what I mean, because that's an extra bill I don't want. My family sort out the internet in the house. I could get them a better deal, but under my name, and I don't have the credit rating to do it and all this kind of stuff. And I said no. And they did try and push the BT Sports sale on me as well. And I said, if you do that, I will take my contract elsewhere. I will get my pack code, and I will go to another provider, 3, for example, or Vodafone. I hate Vodafone, but I said I'll go to O2, 3, or Vodafone if you push it. The guy kept pushing, so I'm walking out the door, at which point his boss said, no, don't push it. We're going to lose a customer who's been a customer for 10 years. Let's not screw it. I basically just put my foot in and I said, no. Trevor Bayliss as a coach. Here's the thing. International coaching now, it doesn't matter where you're from. There's a lot of good coaches from all over the world who coach at the top level because they want to coach. But the spot fixing, that the allegations that come out, they've come out at a very convenient time. If you think about it, with what's going on there, the timing is almost perfect for these allegations to come out, considering the ball tampering with the Australians. The players are remaining unnamed, but if you look at the time frame that this documentary is covering, and this is the important thing, the documentary, how they're covering it, and the time frame, is when England started to lose away badly. It was, I think, the first test and test match that we lost, and we haven't won a test match away since. And our form has just deserted us. So there is some correlations there, and there are some concerns for me. Cricket itself has an issue as a sport with match and spot fixing, and I'm seeing it just reminds me of Hansi Cronje in the late 90s, the South Africa captain at the time, and they all kept denying it, and then it's when the Indian police went, oh, by the way, here's a recording that we've now got a court order that we can actually share with you because we've done our investigation into organised crime. By the way, we got this guy talking about throwing matches and making hundreds of thousands of dollars fixing matches. Here's the evidence. And at which point, when that came out, Hansi Cronje was like, oh, I can see something like that happening, whereby they have wiretapped someone, be it legal or otherwise, and it comes out, and it's going to rock the boat. I did say with the ball tampering with the Australian side over the winter that it wouldn't, with the ball tampering in the South Africa series for Australia, that for me, yeah, I was suspicious. Since motorsport, well, the British touring cars is thankfully on British free-to-air TV, the whole series, the whole championship, and the support package, which is great. And you can also get it on the internet for free on the ITV website streaming. But yeah, no, we've lost Eurosport for free. You got to pay for that now. Even the online website, you got to pay to be a member. We've lost that. The F1 is just a joke anyway. That race yesterday was, I'd rather watch treacle drip off a spoon. Really, that was a shocking race. There's reasons that F1's struggling. But no, motorsport, yeah, the superbikes, the MotoGP, and the viewership has crashed. Yes, the figures are there. The sports governing bodies have gone after the short-term corporate dollar, and they've realised, shit, we can't get out of this agreement now. We've made a mistake, but they're tied into it for the length of TV. It's bad. It is terrible, and they're regretting it. some sections of it are the board members. They go, well, we're making profits every year. Look how much money we're making. But the grassroots people are like, yeah, you're killing the sport, but they don't listen. If the charges are true, yeah, then cricket would be in a very embarrassing situation. The thing is, it's not just Hansi Kronya who's been done for match fixing. There's been the Pakistani team in 2010, Sri Sant for the IPL. There's been IPL links to match fixing and corruption. Cricket is not doing enough to tackle it at all levels of the game. The amount of ex-players and current players who've given interviews saying they've been approached with men with briefcases and bags full of money, cash in hand, so it doesn't go through a bank account, to say, can you spot fix this over, or can you get out on this? Can you get out on, let's say, 96 runs? Just get yourself run out. It has happened. The cricket governing bodies, the ICC has a very strained relationship with most of the big Test nations. There's the ICC is not a very popular governing body within the sport it governs. The local domestic governing bodies of the Test sides are also not very popular, as well, with some of their TV rights decisions and some of the silly stuff they've done. Le Mans. Le Mans is on ITV. It is free to air. I watched some of it last year. Dakar Rally's been on pay-per-view for donkey's years. Isle of Man TT, bits of it are, I think, the highlights package, and a few bits of the TTR, but not a lot of it. The amount of people who are using VPNs or finding live streams, these TV companies are slowly realising they're screwing up. That's why Premier Sport have made the channel Free Sports. Premier Sport have launched a new channel that's free to air on Free Sports, so they're learning that we're missing out on 18 million households that cannot afford or refuse to pay for subscription sport. So at least a TV company has realised this is not working. Sky, I hope Verizon buy them, because then we'll get some free to air. I do hope if Murdoch gets his way, I will just leave the UK. I've had enough. 11 Sports, I don't understand that deal. BT, I've seen BT Sports coverage is shocking. Eurosport, Sky nearly killed it. Eurosport is it is what it is. So the Toulon tournament, it's a crap tournament anyway. It's not worth watching. It's not a good enough level. It's just a kickabout. That's the Toulon tournament. It is just a kickabout. It's not high standard football. But at least it's on free to air, so that's the important thing. The quality is another thing, but it's on free to air. Stephen Gerrard at Rangers, it's a good move in the sense that it brings further interest into Scottish football that it needs. Whether that can bring investment into it as well for all the clubs concerned at the top level is another thing. I don't know whether he'll be successful or not. I think a lot of Rangers fans have got these delusions of grandeur that he's going to be the Messiah. There's a lot of work. The Rangers have got a lot of problems behind the scenes. We'll have to see what happens in who he signs in the summer. How many of these academy players he's worked with at Liverpool end up leaving Liverpool and going to Rangers on contracts, on free transfers or whatever? How many other clubs he's had contact with about their youth programs, about what players he can take, be it young British players or young European players that he can take to Rangers. He's going to have to build a squad on the cheap. I think he can do that through the youth academies and the wider playing squads in English football, in the Premiership and Championship. But he needs to make one or two big, reasonable size signings. It is what it is. I don't think Rangers can even afford to pay £5 million. No, Aberdeen are slightly closing the gap. Hibs are also closing it. The top four are actually a lot closer this season than the previous seasons. So I do think that the gap between Celtic and Aberdeen's closed. Hibs have closed on Rangers, so it's the top four is getting slowly. I think it will still take time. I think Aberdeen are more likely to beat Celtic for the title than Rangers long term. And that might be a good thing for Scottish football if a non-Glaswegian team from the old firm wins the title. That might be what Scottish football needs. Maybe an Edinburgh team winning the title, but it needs investment. The sport in Scotland needs foreign. It doesn't matter if it's foreign or local investment from either fan-owned clubs or a new owner coming in and trying to compete with Celtic. I mean, Motherwell and Hearts have tried in the past and they end up almost ruining themselves. The fact that both teams are sponsored by betting companies is a worry. And when they say fun stop, that is it just shows, just highlights how the sport is sold out. And that concerns me with the match fixing allegations in cricket. That's just an absolute joke. That Sky Bet sponsors the Football League. So that's another Murdoch company. That's a worry that Sky Bet's the sponsor of the Football League. It's a worry that the amount of teams have betting companies sponsoring. We've just heard allegations of match fixing, snooker and cricket in the last couple of days have come out. Players suspended for it. There's been a report to tennis and match fixing. And then the betting companies still getting, advert. Well, I mean, when I watched the Champions League final on the BT Sport YouTube stream, almost half the ads were betting ads. I was amazed. I was amazed by the amount of betting adverts on the live stream, which would obviously be on the TV. I was absolutely stunned, staggered. Madness. I mean, my team's been sponsored by a betting company before. I'm so glad we're not, but anymore. But we were at the time when I got my shirt. And if you watch my History of Blackburn video, I'm wearing my Blackburn shirt from 2006, 2007, and there's a massive betting company on the front of it. Bet24, I think. I don't think they exist anymore, but there was a betting website. I'm stunned by the amount of. I mean, I've got a previous drug addiction, so I know what addiction is about. I've done my meetings. There is a concern that sports are too reliant on the gambling industry for a lot of their revenue and ad revenue. And I'm going to watch the World Cup this summer, and I'm going to watch it on ITV and BBC. And I bet on the ITV games, there's adverts for gambling all over the place. I like it is a concern. And there's also the coming out that players are having gambling problems, and then that can lead to getting to debt and then into match fixing, as we know. And it's the same in rugby as well, and rugby league and cricket, and it's thankfully it hasn't reached the levels of British ice hockey yet, where we have gambling firms sponsoring those teams. Like it I've seen so many mates throw away so much money on the fruit machines, on the horses, on the football accumulators. I've seen my cousin do it. I've watched some good mates who do it, and every time I go see him, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? The fact that horse racing is so now reliant on gambling to survive, and now they changed the law on the fixed beds betting machines from 100 to £2. I think £2. I think tenner would have been about right. And other gambling industries, are you going to risk all these jobs? It's like, well, you've made like a fortune out of people's misery. And the previous governments have done nothing to do anything about it. I'm not saying gambling is a bad thing necessarily if it's done responsibly, but the amount of ad revenue and the amount of companies that are bombarding you every single day. Whenever there's sport on, it's always gambling ads, gambling ads, gambling ads, gambling ads, gambling ads. And it's just like, I just want to watch the sport. I don't want to watch placey bets on the next goal scorer or the next yellow card. I'm not interested in that. If anything, adverts in sport turn me off, piss me off. But it is what it is. I mean, the fact that so many sports teams and so many sports leagues are reliant on a title sponsor being a gambling company is a real concern. I wouldn't mind if it was a car company. I wouldn't mind if it was a plumbing company, like a plumbing supply company. It wouldn't bother me if it was like a supermarket. When it's a pissing gambling company, I have concerns. And yes, the tobacco advertising for F1 and motorsport, iconic liveries on cars. Not denying that, but we knew the risks associated, the health risks. But there has to be a breaking point. There has to be. In France, it's illegal to have alcohol advertising in sport. Yep, in France, it is illegal to have alcohol advertising in sport. So that's something that, um, yeah, that's the French. Obviously, in Saudi Arabia, I don't think you get away with having Carlsberg on your jersey if you're playing a preseason friendly now. Um, oh yeah, no. I mean, for most people, it's a bit of harmless fun, and they go once a month for, let's say, a horse race or a football match. Like now, if there's a tournament like a World Cup, they'll do it infrequently, and there's others who do it every single day. I've got mates who do it every single day. Most of them actually are pretty good on the winning and losing. I mean, my boss, he's on Sky Bet, and he's actually up 3 grand since he started, so he's doing all right. But there's going to be that point where he loses and he's 3 grand down. That's where it gets serious. People ask me, because I do all my research on the stats, and they ask me about, oh, about stats, and I could be good for helping on the betting. I'm like, no, because it's unpredictable. You don't know. If you had said to me how many yellow cards would be in the Champions League final, I was very surprised there was one. I'd think like 5 or 6. I've just cost some guy a lot of money. Sergio Ramos didn't get booked, and I would have put down Sergio Ramos to get booked. Sadio Mane got booked. That was it. Like, so when people say to me that you could help me, on the betting on sports, it's like, yeah, I read the form guide, but the form guide is limited to the point. Then most sport is played outside, in changeable conditions. Anything can happen. Freak injury could happen. Player can get knocked out. That crazy own goal, like the first goal against Liverpool, I did not expect that one. Where he just rolls the ball out and he tries to play quick, and Benzema is like, you could not predict that. That's why I don't really do predictions. I do where I think a team win, but I never predict the score. I mean, I've got a few of them right on my channel, but I never really do predictions. There's no point, because sport is too unpredictable. You can have a good chance that a team is likely to win, but to predict an exact score, there's not an exact science. Unless you're actually the mafia fixing the game, you wouldn't know the score, would you? Um, but it is a concern, the amount of. We've discussed this before, and it's been discussed before in live stream, and it keeps coming up every so often, the role of betting companies in sport. While I don't think they should be banned entirely or anything like that, I think the amount of ads needs to be done after a certain time. They're too early in the day, far too early in the day. There needs to be like an ad watershed for betting adverts. I think the amount of sports tournaments that are reliant on sports, the sponsorship, be it the athletes, the teams, the tournament itself, the league, the sport, that's a concern. But I don't know what else sport can really do. They need obviously money to sponsor, and obviously in the last 10 years that's been an issue with the economics of everything, with the world economy being what it's been the last 10 years. So they need to find a industry that's doing well, and gambling is an industry that's doing well. So they've gone for something that they know is going to have money that they can get sponsorship out of. It just so happens to be the wrong industry. But it's one of the few industries that was making money over the last decade. So they had to go with something that they knew. So they're in a catch-22. It is what it is. Honestly, I don't think you'll see gambling adverts at the World Cup in the stadiums, but on the TV you will. I remember when it was the Coca-Cola Championship, when they changed the Football League to Coca-Cola sponsorship. That was a good move. I liked that move. When they didn't renew the sponsorship agreement, and it then went to Pucker Pies and as the TV ad and the Coca-Cola, they changed it to the Sky Bet Football League. That's where I started to really have concerns. I think Empower did have it for a while as well. But you see the sponsors they had. They had an energy company, they had a soft drinks company, and they had a food company. So these are good things. These are things that you know you need. Um, these are companies that have a reasonable track record when it comes to being responsible in their sponsorship. Then Sky Bet come along, and who has the TV rights? Sky Sports. So there's instantly a conflict of interest because they're both owned by the Murdoch Group. Sky Bet is owned by B Sky B. Sky Sports is owned by B Sky B. So there's a monopoly issue there as well. Um, I have my concerns about the amount. It has been raised in the media. It's been raised in the mainstream media by sports journalists about the amount of betting companies having sponsorship, but it's corporate money, and the FA, amongst other leagues and other sports, have and other organisations have gone for the corporate dollar, and they continue to do so. And they're not changing track anytime soon, unless the government decides to ban betting advertising on TV until after 9 p.m. I don't see how there's going to be a change. Um, like this is the issue with sport. The stream is about sport. So if you've got any sports questions, feel free to ask them. But with betting companies, because they're an industry that's been making a lot of money, making a lot of profits, employing a lot of people, they're one of the few success stories in the economy in the last 10 years in the world economy. So, and then now the US states federal court has said we are going to allow registered legalized gambling across the whole of the US. So I can't see the sports sponsorship by betting companies ending. I can see the Americans getting a lot of betting companies starting up or going over there, and I can see a lot more gambling sponsorship because the US federal court has now said that it should be legalized across the United States, and it's now up to each and every state individually to organize the regulations on gambling outside of the state lotteries. So now it's completely open to have Ladbrokes, Betfair, Betfred, whatever you want to. I mean, I've got to be careful, but those are the companies to go over and to get into the American market and vice versa. The Las Vegas Gaming Commission, they're going to probably want to buy into the European betting market. There is concerns, but at the same time, if the law changes on the fixed odds machines, the the American law change will have an effect. I'm going to see if Bet24 was liquidated because they did sponsor Blackburn for a while. I think for a season or two. We had them as a shirt sponsor about 10, 12 years ago. This is going back a long time. This is when online gambling was just getting started. So we are going back. Let's have a look. Bet24. That's Paddy Power. Power. No, it's still going. And it's a Maltese company. It's an online bookmaker, but it's based out of Malta. But it has changed its logo. It's not the same logo it had on our jersey 12 years ago. It's still going. It's based out of Malta, so that's basically it's owned by the Kindred Group. So that's a shell company. That's a bit of a concern for me. Are you not rugby? I do like rugby union. Yes, I do like rugby union. I just haven't had as much, to talk about. I will be talking about the Wales games when their games are on Channel 4 over here in the UK against South Africa next month. That's going to be nice to watch. I know it might clash with the World Cup, but it's nice to see. Of course, the Saracens beat the Exeter Chiefs. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that, but they're the two best teams in England. But there are some things around rugby union. I mean, England losing to the Barbarians as badly as they did, that's the worst defeat England have had at Twickenham with the most points against. That is embarrassing. And the Barbarians is just only has a wig cobbled together before they play. So that's really embarrassing. And the fact an English player in Ashton ripping England apart and scoring a hat trick against England is embarrassing. That highlights the selection issues. Where if you're playing in France, you can't get selected. I think that's stupid. Right. Yeah, Man United, they got criticised for not having a professional women's team in the WSL, or even a women's team when it was all amateur years past, because Man City and Chelsea and Arsenal and Fulham and Yeovil, at the various levels of the Football League structure, the men's side were having these women's teams, and they were criticised. But here's the thing: a sports club should not be forced to have a gender-specific team unless there's an interest there. They should not be forced to. I think that's down to them going, right. Have we got enough interest to do it? Are people interested in it? To say that they were like sexist or whatever was wrong. They did get criticised, but a club of Man United size not to look into the WSL sooner or women's football sooner, I think makes them look bad. Yes, the Trump thing. Let's not get started on Trump. We could have me explode politically, and I don't particularly want to get political. I try and keep politics off, but America's always been money orientated. People are blaming Trump for a lot of things. I'm going to keep this quite simple. However, the Democrat administration under Obama wasn't as great as people think it was, and obviously the legacy of George W. Bush is there, and Clinton. There's a lot of issues going back 30 years. Leinster doing the double. The thing is, because most rugby union is on pay for the UTV, it's very hard to get even highlights and stuff like that. And because I haven't seen much of it since YouTube has taken copyright violations, it's very hard to get rugby streams. I will be watching the Pacific Nations Championship on the World Rugby YouTube live streams because they have a channel. But the fact that they've done the double, in any sport, do a domestic and international double is really, really hard. But they've got some great young players coming through, like Jordan Larmour. The Ireland setup as a whole has got a lot of good, young, talented players coming through. I think Ireland are the best team with a chance to win the World Cup next year, apart from the All Blacks. I honestly believe that. But there's just not enough free-to-air coverage of rugby union here in the UK on free-to-air TV. Channel 5 gets a few games, the not very important ones in domestic rugby. I mean, the not very important ones. So the ones that you want to watch, you can't because you've got to pay for them, primarily on BT Sport for an overpriced package. We've discussed pay for UTV. But what Leinster did, yes, that is a very, very outstanding achievement. It's probably going to be hard to replicate. And the next team to do that will be on a level par with them. And that's going to be very, very hard. It's very, very hard not only to win one title, but to win two in the space of a week. That's pretty good. That just shows how strong Irish rugby is at the moment. But I did all my Six Nations videos, so if you want to watch my Six Nations video, I do mention how good the Irish domestic game is. I mean, yeah, they're a few months back, but I do go into the Six Nations. I watched a lot of the games. I was very impressed with how Ireland have developed some of the young talent the last couple of years. I'm very, very impressed with how Connacht, the other province, yes, the province no one wants to talk about, is suddenly good and is a solid team that's at the top. So Ireland going forward are in a good place. They look the team most likely to beat the All Blacks in the World Cup next year. England are not close enough. France are too unpredictable. The Welsh and the Scots, again, very Jekyll and Hyde, a good one game, bad the next, and no consistency. And the Irish are just generally solid at club and international level. I will be covering bits of Roland Garros, so I'm going to see how Djokovic was playing today. We're going to see how Nadal does because he is the defending champion and wants to win it yet again and break more records. But I don't enjoy the French Open as much as Wimbledon. I just don't enjoy it as much. I think it's to do with the surface and the style of tennis that's played on it because it's a different surface, it's a different speed. Players play the surface differently because it can hold the moisture or it can get very dry and then it affects the bounce of the ball and everything. I will be covering it though. That's not to say that I don't like it. It's just it's not my favourite out of the two European tennis Grand Slams. I prefer Wimbledon. I always have. Um, it's not something that's so special about it. I just prefer grass court tennis. I think the ball is quicker. I think the play is quicker. The ball just zips more. The ball just zips more. There's more zip and there's more pace on a cross court volley or a serve down the line. It just because clay is a slightly slower surface because of how heavy the clay is. It weighs the balls down. It's heavier. It's heavy underfoot. There's a lot more slipping on clay as well. You'll notice a lot of players probably slip, hurt their do ankles. The reason why is we don't play on clay. We play either on hard or grass courts over here. There's the difference. Um, Clay is only really used, I think, on the mainland of Europe, except Germany, Switzerland, us. They're more grass courts. Eastern and the Balkans is Eastern Europe and the Balkans is more hard courts, and it's only France, Italy, parts of Italy, and Spain that use clay. Most use hard courts or grass. Grass and the hard courts are faster um, than clay. Clay's there's less clay tournaments as well. But it is what it is. But Swiss also have grass tournaments, and Federer is a big driving force by the reason why Switzerland are going from clay to grass. There's some very good grass tournaments in Switzerland. They do use clay as well, but because of Roger Federer's success on grass, there's more of a drive now to get those grass courts and hard courts as well. I don't think the TV rights will be taken away from free to air because that would really show up because it's an international tournament. The international tournaments are kept free to air because otherwise there would probably be a revolution. Uh, I think the TV companies are working out not to take the piss out of fans. They've milked us enough, and we're starting to push back. And they're realizing they won't take the TV right deal away from free to air TV. They can get a bigger audience. To put it behind a subscription paywall, not everyone's going to want to pay for that. 18 million households do not want to have subscription sport. That's 1/3 of households do not have subscription sport TV. So you can see what's going to happen if they were to take it away. They're going to lose 1/3 of their viewers. If they were to take it away, that's 1/3 of the viewership down. Wouldn't look good when you're trying to get a World Cup bid in, when you're denying the sport to 18 million households, 1/3 of the population. That would look really, 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 um, really stupid. Really, it would look really bad. It just wouldn't work. I do think ITV and BBC keep them. Maybe Channel 4 and Channel 5 get in there as well and give a bit more competition. But honestly, I do think they stay long term because we've seen we mentioned earlier the viewership figures for all these sports that are behind the paywall has plummeted, absolutely plummeted. And we're starting to see the BBC will get some live cricket back in the next couple of years. Channel 4's got Wales's overseas tour, so there's actually less games having shown on Sky and BT in the Rugby Union in the summer. Wales games are going to be shown on Channel 4. Every game at the World Cup is going to be shown free to air on BBC and ITV. Same with the Euros. The Rugby Union World Cup is all on ITV. They get a bigger audience. They get a massive audience. More people will watch free to air, and the public have basically made it very clear on the forums that I've been on and the news websites I've been on. When they allow the comments, very, 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 very clear that they are not happy with being put up behind a paywall, especially from the poorer backgrounds or those who have a lot of bills to pay and are really squeezed financially, and they're just eking by, where they maybe surviving after they've done all their food shopping bills. They've got an extra 30 quid a week. They're not willing to they're not willing to pay. And people our age group, I'm assuming most of us are in the 18 to 34 bracket here. We're not paying for it anymore. We're just not. It's not happening. It's they're slowly realizing we're turning off subscriptions paid for. We want it free. We want it accessible. And they're slowly realizing this because people are complaining about why do I have to pay a TV license when half the TV is on subscription TV or the majority? Why should I pay? That's kind of the argument, and it's reached a point with it being a bit more pushback. Let me just check that. I have not seen the Columbus Crew news going to Austin. I will double check that. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at this news quick. Because Columbus Crew is one of the founding clubs of the MLS, so this is important. Let's have a look. Columbus Crew. Let's have a look. See what's going. Let's see what's on. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at their history quickly, because they have been a founder of the MLS, so it's very very rare that in North American sport that a team gets relocated. They try and do revenue sharing, but let's see what's going on here, because I haven't. Right. I'm just going through their Wikipedia page here. Yes, it's a proposed move. That is only if they can't get a downtown stadium in Columbus. So it's not confirmed. It's the new owner being a bit of an arse to try and get a stadium built. When a proposed relocation comes up, it's normally an owner trying to pressurise the local council and the local city into building a stadium for him because he doesn't want to pay for it. That's how North American sport works. The thing is, you've got to have 2/3 of owners agree to it, and it screws up the conferences because they're on the east, and that means going to the west, and that will screw everything up. What is it? Okay, on March the 5th of this year, Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine and the City of Columbus filed a lawsuit against Precourt, the owner of the Columbus Crew, citing a 1996 state law, and this is important, that prevents sport teams that benefited from public facilities, though the state of Ohio paid for the stadium. Columbus isn't a big city; it's a tiny city. It's tiny in comparison to Cincinnati. It's a university city. It's not the size of New York. It's tiny. But here we go. Right. It says this is the state law. It prevents sports teams that benefit from public facilities or financial assistance, which they did, from relocating to another city without a 6-month notice and attempting to sell the team to a local ownership group. So they've got to attempt to sell locally first, which they haven't done, and they've got to give 6 months notice. This was passed after the Cleveland Browns were originally moved to Baltimore. So it's a proposed move. Basically, it's the owner wanting the local state government to build him a stadium because he doesn't want to pay. Even though he's a multi-billionaire, he doesn't want to pay money because he wants to get as rich as possible. But Columbus, for some reason, the sports franchises in Ohio do regularly lose money for some reason, and so he's trying to get a new stadium built for him for free, basically. It's only proposed, and it may get blocked, and he may not be allowed to do it because also the league has to have a 2/3 majority vote in favour or against for a motion to pass or fail. But it's the same. If you look at the Calgary Flames in the NHL, they're having arena issues. It's the same with Arizona. The owners are trying to get the local government to build them a stadium because they refuse to pay for it, even though they're multi-billionaires and they'll make more money in the long run. They want a stadium for free, and the fans aren't happy. But at the same time, because they're franchise-based leagues rather than a sanctioned league with a governing body with clubs as members, it has to go to a vote. 2/3 of the owners have to agree or disagree for the motion to pass or fail, depending on what is being voted upon. And because they're in the East and they're going to move to a Western Conference, if they move to Austin, that screws up the conferences. And I don't think with the current expansion rate that's coming in with the MLS, that the owners will want to, because relocation fees are worth less than expansion fees as well. So it's rich guys wanting to get richer, and some of these rich guys won't get rich as much as they want to, so they might vote against. Andres Iniesta, well, he says he's going to the World Cup, which he is. It's just this is why people don't take the Asian league seriously, or the MLS. They're classed as retirement homes for players. I mean, Lucas Podolski isn't actually that old, and I think they're just money chasing. They're now becoming mercenaries, and for me, that changes my opinion on them. If they just retired as one club men or retired in European football, I would respect them more. I mean, I understand why they're doing it. They want to get paid, but it doesn't help develop the Japanese game. It doesn't help develop the MLS as much as it should. If you get a big name going, if Lucas Podolski and Andres Iniesta went to the MLS, that might actually help grow the game in an established league that is trying and is doing rather well expanding. Japanese football, it's just been known as a great, a retirement home for 30 years. And same with Chinese. It's just known as retirement home. Players get overpaid for going there, paid far too much, and the quality of football is really shocking. And the match fixing is through the roof. It's not even a proper competitive league because people know it's match fixing, rampant match fixing. The quality of football is absolutely appalling. And they're just paid big money to play 4 or 5 times a season to jog around. It's not a competitive league. It's not a good league. It's not great at all. It's not great watching. It's terrible. But I understand why these players are getting paid the big money. They want to get paid. They want to get paid, but I it is what it is. It's the way modern football's going. They want to keep playing, and that's fine. And people criticise some leagues for starting up. These lads want to keep getting paid. Tevez. I mean, this is what I find ludicrous. How much they're getting paid. Like, half a million a week, 250,000 a week. 350K a week. I mean, I'll be lucky to earn that in 10 years, 20 years of work. The amount of money they're on is wrong. I think football players as a whole, as a sport worldwide, are overpaid excessively. The wages are overinflated, and we've discussed this so many times on live streams about the price of football, in a sense, how much these players are getting played and paid for being, kicking the ball around. Their agents' fees aren't transparent. That's something else that's come out. I wouldn't say the economy in Asia is inflated. It's the football economy. It's the sports side of things. The wages are overinflated. China is the fastest growing economy in the world, and it has slowed down in the last few years. But it has been growing at about 10% a year for over a decade. There's a big middle class. There's a very wealthy middle class in China. Same with Vietnam as well. All these Southeast Asian and Pacific Asian countries are actually surprisingly wealthy, and the middle classes are getting very wealthy. The human rights records are appalling. This is why I also understand how these Westerners can go over there, where the human rights records are absolutely shocking in some of these countries. It's like they're legitimizing brutality. I mean, Vietnam and China are exceptionally wealthy, but match fixing is rampant in Asian sport. So I don't know. But players' wages is stupidly high. And their agents' fees. There's been a big discussion about the amount of money that agents get, and some of the contracts these players are on. There's a big argument about it. This is why I like watching other sports, because the sportsmen are paid so much less than a football player. Ice hockey, rugby league, they're paid so much less in comparison, and they're still well paid. And I think that's what football players should be paid, is what a rugby player or a rugby league player or ice hockey player is paid. It is what it is. The Asian and Arabian owners, they are wealthy. A lot of them come from the political elite as well. So They've got all the oil and gas and all sorts. They got a lot of money. They're newly rich. They're the new rich. A lot of them come from the ruling elite, especially in Arabia. They're all princes, so they've all got money anyway. They're born with money. They're wealthy landowners, so they have all the oil rights and gas rights. And when anything gets built on their land, they get money for it. And it is what it is. Property is another big thing they've got. They made a lot of money in. So yeah, there's a lot of money in the newly rich in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. There's a lot of money in it. Um, but where does the money come from? Because the world economy is not in a good place right now. It hasn't been for a decade. Um, and this money's got to come from somewhere. It has to. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, like long term. We'll see what happens, going forward with foreign ownership. I mean, it's here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. Oh, yeah. Foreign ownership's here to stay. It's just here to stay. And Sheikh Mansour. I mean, look, I'm not overly sold on some of these guys. They're just rich playboys. And I've had this discussion, and then loads of people have pushed back against me and said, "Oh, yeah, you're just jealous." It's like, jealous of what? Corruption, really? I mean, a lot of these guys use their sports teams as tax write off, tax write off. Um, they can deduct it against tax and get a rebate because they normally make a loss on their sporting business deliberately. Um, it's a tax write off. And a lot of them who own these foreign clubs are not resident here, so they don't pay tax here because the tax rates in their country are probably lower to encourage growth. So that's where they've got all their money from, is by not paying their income tax. So they don't have to. It's what it is. That's where the money's coming from. But the Abu Dhabi circuit is dull. I hate it. I hate Abu Dhabi. It's a horrible circuit. It's just got no. It's just not a nice circuit to watch racing. It's crap. F1's crap anyway, but that's just me. And I sat through that race yesterday. I sat through Monaco going, I'd rather watch Treacle drive, but it is what it is. I mean, it's all corporate now. The sport has lost a bit of its soul, I think. Um, and it's all very corporate. And when you see interviews now with sportsmen, they have no personality. They're just corporate droids, and they just they're just drones, and it's boring. And I'm like, can I have? Oh yeah, no, the Qatari government, yeah, they own PSG. I mean, that's a joke. That's money laundering if ever I've seen it. Is the Qatari ownership of that? That's just money laundering. That is. But it's funny that the PSG are crap in Europe. Like they dominate a league, but they can't do anything in Europe. Um, makes me laugh. And the rumours are that Neymar's on the way out of PSG anyway. He's going to go somewhere else. There are rumours that he's linked to Real Madrid, or he might go back to Barcelona. Or he might go to Germany or Italy, or might come over here. There are rumours he's on the way out of PSG. I wouldn't be surprised if Guardiola does try and get him to sign. I wouldn't be surprised. No, be Man City for Neymar because of the Guardiola link. Gareth Bale might go to Man United because of the Mourinho link. Um, I wouldn't say it's a great Real Madrid side. There are better sides. I don't know. How do you quantify what the best side ever is? I mean, each generation era has a different style of play, a different skill set, and I think teams in the 70s and the 80s were probably better, if I'm honest, because the Borussia Mönchengladbach and Bayern Munich sides in German football dominated European football in the 70s. They had more trophies than Real Madrid and Barcelona. They absolutely. I mean, Borussia Mönchengladbach got 5 European UEFA Cups in 7 seasons, and Borussia and Bayern Munich got 3, what is now the Champions Leagues in a row. So German football was far better than Spanish football in the 70s. It was the dominant domestic competition in the 70s. So you could say the German 70s club sides of Mönchengladbach and Bayern Munich were probably better than Real Madrid's. You could put Hamburg in there as well because they won a European title. I honestly don't know what you could quantify as the best team ever. I mean, it's very hard. It's very hard. I would say the AC Milan teams of the 90s, maybe they were bloody brilliant. You could say Valencia in the late 90s were good as well. I mean, you had the Man United treble winning team. They were probably the best team of that year. The Arsenal Invincibles. You have the Lisbon Lions, Celtic in the 60s. You know, you've got a lot of teams who had a successful spell or spells who were really great teams, be it for a year or a decade. It's hard to quantify. But that 2002 Galacticos side, a couple of years later, they were no hopers. That's what I mean. Like literally, they had all those good players, and then the next couple of seasons they were absolutely hopeless. In Europe, they were these. They did win that 2002 Champions League, but they all fell out with each other. They couldn't gel together. There was a lot of egos there. And then Arsenal defeated them 5-1. Later on with Guti in midfield, and then Thierry Henry ripped them apart like in 2006. So, and then you had Liverpool defeat them like 4-0 in Europe as well. And Casillas was the only one keeping it at 4-0. It could have been 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So Spanish football's gone up and down over the last 2 decades. It's hard to say. Looking at that star quality, yeah, you've got 1, 2, 3. You've got 3 World Cup winners in that side. You've got a Euro 2004 finalist in that side. You've got a Euro 2000 winner side in Zidane. You've got a lot in there. You've won international titles. Yeah. Would I say the best club side? Possibly. But best side ever. I don't know, because they only had the one good year, did that Galactico side, and after that it was literally overplayed, petulant prima donnas. Either side of that 2002 title, they couldn't get on. But you could look at the Man United team from '99 as a very good side as well. I mean, it is difficult because Real Madrid domestic football, they're not as good as Barcelona and as Atletico at the moment. They are a step behind them. So Zidane's got them working well in Europe, not domestically. So until he starts winning domestic trophies as well as European trophies, then that's where you can say best ever. That library behind me is some of my family's books. None of those books got anything to do with me. It's just a spare book cabinet we have with books because we have a limited space. So some of our books live in every bedroom. We've got bookshelves, and that's just one of them. So in my room, I've got bookshelves, and most books aren't mine. It's just we have a lack of space, and that's where books have to go. None of them have got anything to do with sport at all. Not a single sports-based book there. Very upsetting. Oh, bloody phone, go away. I've got to tell people I'm busy. Why can't people just leave me alone in the evening? I've just got a message someone telling me to bugger off. Conversations. But no, yeah, the Galacticos 2002 was a very, very good side. But they had to play a very good side in Bayer Leverkusen at the time. That were one of the best teams in German football. So, yeah, it is hard to say who's the best side and then the worst side and all that. I think everyone's opinion on what their best side they've ever seen is going to vary. There is no set opinion on the best side in football or the worst. The best player. I mean, because everyone's got their own view on who is the best or who is the best team or what's the the best manager. I mean, I personally think Guardiola and Mourinho are both heavily overrated managers. I think the quality of football is actually less now than what it was 10, 20 years ago. Uh, um, but that's it really. To say who's the best player of all time, everyone's got their own personal opinion because you could go. For me, the best player of all time, Pele. Derby. Well, yes. Lampard being linked. Gerrard's gone to Rangers. Lampard linked to a managerial job as well. They're both of the same generation, same age. Derby's owner though is so unpredictable, and I think that'll be a very, very bad move because the owner of Derby very unpredictable. Lots of legal troubles. I don't know if that's necessarily a place that could give him time. I think he is being heavily linked, but there's a lot of people being linked with that job. Um, the fan base is loyal. They want to get back in the Premier League, um, but there are issues with the owner. That's the simple problem. Is there's issues with the owner. Michael Ballack, yes, he was a brilliant player, but I wouldn't say he's the best German midfielder. That'd be Beckenbauer. Beckenbauer, Rummenigge were, I think, better midfielders than Michael Ballack. Ballack never won the World Cup as a player. Rummenigge and Beckenbauer did, and that's the dividing line. That is it. But Ballack in the modern era, yes, he's been Germany's best midfielder, but never won a World Cup. Club football, brilliant. International football, brilliant, but just a shade underneath Rummenigge and Beckenbauer for me. Apparently, that's news. But again, you're hearing it. I'm not. I'm going to have to go on the internet and because it doesn't get covered south of the border. Scottish football does not get the coverage here in England that I think that any league that's professional in the UK should get equal coverage. But it's all obsessed about the English Premier League, English Premier League, English Premier League. Nothing to do with not enough. There's not enough press coverage of what's this? Let's have a look. There's not a lot of news really. There's nothing here that says anything about the stadium at all. There's nothing to do about anything to do with the stadium at all. They are not happy with the St Johnstone aren't going to be taking part in the reserve league structure in Scotland. They've told the Scottish FA go do one on that. But there's absolutely nothing about their stadium at all. But I'll probably able to find something at some point. When did I start? Why or when? Oh, why? I was bored. I started it as a personal vlog, and I was just needed someone to vent really, and it ended up becoming a sports channel. So if you watch some of my early videos, they are really, really funny, and they are atrociously bad, but they're really funny. But then I did a couple of sports videos. They looked more popular, and then I did a video on Mark Sampson getting sacked, and that was the first one to get over 100 views. And then the Rugby League World Cup came along, and that's when I got thousands of views for videos, and we've gone from there. And obviously the last couple of days, the channel's really grown a lot, and so therefore, I'm in the channel's in the best place it's ever been. The channel was growing, which is good. The issue that is still going to be there is I'm still a small channel compared to some of the other channels that are out there, but we are making the progress that I'm still ahead of schedule. If you know what I mean, like with where I think the channel's at. and the channel progression and the channel growth were ahead of where I thought we would be at every point. Every point the channel's been going, I'm ahead of where I planned to be, because I knew slow and steady channel growth would be good, and I'm ahead on every step of where I thought I would be. I mean, in hindsight, I wish I started the channel a year or two earlier, but that's hindsight. That's something that's great to have. Um, oh, I've got a wasp in my room. Oh, hell. I'll kill it in a minute. Bloody flies. But no, the channel is ahead of where I thought it would be in growth, viewership, subscribers, the amount of videos done as well. I've done over 600 now. So all of that is far ahead of where I thought I'd be this time last year. This time last year, I didn't know what to expect or what would happen. And well, this time last year, I was actually in hospital recovering from a motorcycle accident, so I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was all smashed up. So it's a little bit different. A lot's happened in the last 12 months. The channel's just exploded in growth in the last 3 months, especially, and it's really kicked on. So, but I just started it because I was bored and I wanted to do it. I was having a rough time anyway. I had a personal blog, and it evolved into talking about sport, and we carried on talking about sport. Do I know who Tommy Wright is? No, I don't know who Tommy Wright is. I don't follow every single sports story or every single thing. That wasp is going to get an absolute kicking in a minute. That's going to really piss me off. Uh, but no, the Sir Johnstone Stadium, I've heard nothing on the news. There's nothing there. But again, this is the British media. They are heavily weighted towards the Premier League, like really heavily over biased towards the Premier League in a sense that they cover too much of it at the expense of other leagues and other sports. Not a lot of coverage on the playoff finals day. It's League Two. It's not important to the big scheme of things. And that's a problem. I think a lot of other sports could use extra press coverage and extra press exposure, and he's just not getting it. I used to like MotoGP, and then they took it away and put it behind a paywall, so I can't watch that anymore. Superbikes, I don't mind. TT racing, I'm not overly a fan of motorcycle racing on street circuits. But I do like motorcycle. I like motocross. I have subscribed to a couple of motocross channels on YouTube. I can watch the AMA American motocross championship. So I do like my motocross. I do like my superbikes. But of course, MotoGP, again, the rights were sold to BT, so they've taken it away from free to air, which I think is wrong, because the coverage on Channel 5 when it originally had it, and then on BBC was brilliant, and they've taken it away. So that just shows how short-sighted and how greedy the sports organisers are. They're too short sighted. They're going for pure greed, and it so I can't watch my GP anymore. But I do like the superbikes. I'm not 100% sold on the TT. I'm not a big fan of road racing on motorcycles. But I will watch the occasional, TT program or the 250 things like that. I don't hate it. I'm just not as much of a fan of TT, but I prefer motocross anyway. Motocross is more fun. It's more even playing field because the conditions have a lot to play with. If it pisses down with rain and you've got a really muddy track, that can just cause chaos. Kilmarnock, again, there's not enough press coverage south of the border. I know they had a decent season. They were mid-table. They had a decent season, did Killy. They were, I think, 5th or 6th. So they're not doing too bad. They're a good, stable mid-table side in the Scottish Premiership. But there's just not enough coverage of Scottish football south of the border, which is a problem for Scottish football, really. They're just not getting the wider press coverage outside of Rangers and Celtic and Aberdeen. They're just not getting the news stories about them. They're not getting the press coverage. They're not getting the exposure. And there's where Scottish football's problem lies partly, is the the media obsession with the English Premier League, and the media obsession with the England national side at the expense of the other nations is really cringe, because the quality level isn't great down here. Everyone thinks Premier League is the best league in the world. Great, not enough English players are playing in it, so it's not great for youth development. Then I'm a bit grumpy when it comes to football because of um, the way that the press coverage works. Um, it is what it is. I'm not. I think some of the other clubs in the Scottish Premiership, they need more investment. They need a chance to compete. Otherwise, it's just going to be Celtic's league for a while. Um, but we've discussed this every time. Every live stream this comes up about uncompetitive leagues or an uncompetitive sport. And Scottish football is an uncompetitive league. The Scottish Premiership is very uncompetitive. Um, there's not enough money in the game in Scotland. There's not enough. I mean, I don't know what's happened to the talent pool in Scotland, the youth development, and those young kids who want to play. Because the quality level of Scottish players now is not great. There's very few Scottish players in the Premier League. Very few. There's more in the Championship now. Very few playing at the top level of the Premier League in England. The quality level. I mean, Celtic qualified for Europe, get slaughtered in Europe. So I don't know what Scottish football can do to improve. Kilmarnock, I'm not anti Kilmarnock. They had the results I saw of them, and then the news I'm looking at the table. They're a solid mid-table side, but it only takes a slow start of the season to be relegated in Scottish Premiership. From sixth downwards, you're all there's just a risk of relegation for half the league from day one, until the last 3-4 weeks of the season. So that's not great when over half your league is at risk from relegation from the first day of the season till basically the third last week. That's not good. When the gap between, is that big. I think, didn't Celtic have a 7-1 defeat this season in Europe, or 7-0? I know it was against St. Petersburg. Russian teams don't travel away from home well. They struggle away from home traditionally. That's changing somewhat, but traditionally in the 80s and 90s in Europe, Russian teams really struggled away from home. If they went a goal down, then they would crumple. But not the case anymore. I mean, Celtic never get out of the Champions League group. They're always bottom of the Champions League group, or near the bottom. They never get out. They don't even qualify for the Europa League by finishing third. That's the gap. And PSG struggle in Europe. I mean, PSG got all these star players, but struggle in the knockout stages. So that's just embarrassing. How bad Celtic were this year in Europe. I know they're beating Barcelona. I mean, I don't think they did. I think they literally were bottom of their group and got knocked straight out. If they did get into the Europa League, I didn't remember it. This is the problem with Scottish football. Celtic, brilliant domestically, hopeless in Europe, because they might nick the odd win away. They might nick the odd win at home. They might have a couple of draws, but for the most part, losing 7-1 to PSG is embarrassing, because French football was just as uncompetitive as Scottish football. To lose 7-1 to a team that also does not have a great history in European club football, that's pretty cringe. That's pretty diabolical. I mean, this is not the Celtic that beat Barcelona 4 or 5 years ago. This is a Celtic that has got used and got soft because it's in a very uncompetitive league and they get hammered in Europe. And when I say get hammered, 7-1 in Champions League is embarrassing. But you can't. Anderlecht aren't the team they were in the 80s, because the Belgian league is also down the toilet. But to get battered 7-1 by PSG is just shows how far behind Scottish football is. And then to both beat Zenit and Anderlecht, but then to lose as well, and to show You know, not good, not good. I mean, they rarely get out of the group. I mean, Rangers did get hammered. I think it was either Rangers or Aberdeen got hammered by part timers from Luxembourg. Yeah, that just shows Scottish football's mess that it's in. That domestically, you got two or three sides at the top of the table. They get into Europe and they get walloped. And when I say get walloped, they get absolutely hammered. They do, and it's been like it for over 2 decades now. You know, for the most part, there's the occasional season like Rangers get into the Europa League final, 2008, but for the most part, Scottish sides in Europe, they're just there to make up the numbers. And then the team that finishes third or sixth or whatever it is, and they go for the qualification for Europa League, they don't get out the qualification stages. They don't make it to the main group stage. So that's the problem with Scottish football is they're just not competitive enough. Even just got a little European run just for the fans to have a bit of fun and go on a bit of a European run. They just can't do it. It's been like that for 2 decades. That's why Scotland haven't qualified for a European tournament or a world tournament. An international tournament for 20 years. They're not producing the quality of player. The investment in the league is dried up. Teams are in all sorts of financial difficulties, from Rangers to Dunfermline to Livingston to Hibs to Hearts. They've all had at various points money problems. Gretna have gone completely bust. So yeah, there's a whole multitude of issues with the Scottish FA, the league, and this we discussed this almost every live stream for at least 5 minutes. Most live streams. We didn't do it last night, but every time there's enough Scottish people on the live stream and there's Scottish football fans on the live stream, it gets discussed how poor Scottish football is. Simple. I wouldn't even say Celtic and Rangers Aberdeen would compete in the channel. I would say Celtic and Aberdeen could probably be mid-table, Championship at best. Rangers bottom third, and they all survive in the Championship, but they don't promote themselves. That's where I actually honestly believe that Rangers, Aberdeen, and Celtic they're not going to. They will be at Championship mid-table Championship sides. They wouldn't even make the playoff places. That's why I think, honestly, Scottish football's at. That bloody fly is going to die a horrible death. Oh, it's a wasp. Oh, that's great. That's just marvellous. I've got a wasp in the room. Yeah. This is the issue is it's all great qualifying for it, but just to get hammered all the time, and then the fans misbehave as well. Scottish football fans in Europe misbehave regularly. And it's just cringe, especially Celtic fans when they misbehave. It's just really embarrassing. I mean, Rangers, the Europa League final, that was pretty embarrassing as well when they misbehaved 10 years ago. But it is what it is. I mean, I know we've talked a lot about football tonight because most of the viewers have been football. Most of you guys have been football fans, but these conversations don't change. We keep having the same conversations every time the same questions get asked, and it keeps coming up more and more and more. I'm not saying I don't like discussing these things or having an opinion on them, but the issues are still there. Scottish football needs to get the investments. The Scottish FA needs to talk to other football associations and say, look, how can we improve? The Scottish FA needs to look at other sports that Scotland are better at, like rugby, ice hockey, and go, right, okay, we've got some successful rugby union teams. We've got some successful ice hockey teams. How are they making a success whereas our football teams are not? Let's have a look at how we can get better. So that's something that the Scottish FA needs to seriously consider doing. And we'll have to see, what happens with that. Hello. But yeah, the live stream's going to come to an end in about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes because I've got dinner and stuff. It is still really, really warm. But yeah, no, we've discussed a fair bit tonight, and the same issues keep coming up. And I'm surprised, even with new people joining the live stream and new people joining the channel, the same questions and the same issues keep getting raised every bloody week. It's amazing. It's amazing that these discussions, interesting that they are, and so there are some really interesting questions, the issues that certain sports have when new people join the live stream or come on the channel and subscribe, and they're involved in their first or second live stream, and they ask a question. The funny thing is that question's been asked the week before, or that point's been discussed the week or 2 weeks before in a live stream, and the issue is still there, and the sport hasn't done anything to tackle said problem. It's really, really, really interesting. Yeah. Right. So, any other questions? Because otherwise, I'm gonna wind down the live stream. Otherwise, because I've been going for over 3 hours now, and I'm really hot and bothered, and it's really humid, and I think it's gonna be another thunderstorm later. There's a few clouds floating about. And I'm being hang on. We're still taking play. It's consistent. Well, it's when that's called a competitive league. That's a good sign. I know it's bad for you as a Leeds fan, but that's a good sign that a league you're in is very competitive, where there's a lot of teams all trying to go for it. And so you win some, you lose some, and it's showing that the Super League is competitive in a sense. But I still say the NRL is a higher quality league with a higher quality player. That's all I'm gonna say on that. I understand the history that the Leeds Rhinos have, and they're a very successful side. But every time there's success, you have to go also through a lean spell. And I think so. Some of your core players now having retired, Sinfield and Co, and Burrows and all that lot, you're going to have to build for the future. But the fact that you are winning some and you're going up, and then other teams win the next day, shows that the league you're in is competitive, which is more fun sport to watch, especially when you've got multiple teams in with a chance of succeeding. It's far more fun to watch. I understand it's annoying though, but I like watching competitive leagues more than uncompetitive leagues. It's simple. It's very rare that I get rugby league fans on the live streams that rugby league's their favourite sport. But it's good to see a different sport represented, another fan base, another city. I like seeing all the different colours in the chat as well, all the different fan bases, all the different cities and locations around the world, not just in the UK. It's really interesting seeing the people get involved and ask the questions. So it's good to have a fresh face and a different fan base on asking the questions. But no, yeah, you're in sixth place. There's a reason why you're just that step behind from where you were, and you've lost a few experienced players over the last couple of seasons, and you need to get the new leadership core to step up, develop, grow, and reach a level that Peacock and Sinfield and Co were at. And they need to get to that level, and that takes time. And you're not going to win. You're not going to win every game. And you're not going to win every trophy that you compete for. It's just not human. At some point you have to go without silverware for a while, and it is annoying, especially if a fan base has got very, very used to success and is used to a certain style of play at a certain standard. But every successful team has to go through that lean spell to become successful again. It's very, very hard to stay consistent for years. Wigan are doing very, very well. Yes, that they are. I wouldn't say the NRL has necessarily better stadiums and pitches. I just think the quality level, especially refereeing and playing, is of a higher level. The NRL I think, is better than Super League. I've had this discussion on several occasions on the channel with the NRL versus Super League debate on which league's better and how can both leagues where they can learn and improve from each other. I think the Super League has to go to the 2-rep system. I think we're losing too many of our good players to Australia, but the Australian players that come back over, the NRL-based players that come back over, are not of the same calibre for the most part. Ben Barber being an exception. Ben Barber being a clear exception because he's a world-class player. And he has won the grand final with the Cronulla Sharks, over there in Australia a couple of years ago. But I still think the quality of play, the physicality, the fitness levels as well, because the NRL, I think, is a step ahead of the Super League. And I think the Rugby League World Cup last autumn highlighted the gap between the two leagues very well. Highlighted the gap in interruptions. People don't know when doors are closed to knock. You know, it's my family. Um, yeah, the difference between the Super League and the NRL was highlighted in the Rugby League World Cup very clearly. There was a clear quality gap between the two leagues. Very clear. It will change over time. There was a period of time when the Super League was better than the NRL. Due to the Rugby League Super League wars over in Australia, there was a time when the Super League was the better league, and now it's reversed. And will it stay that way forever? No. But at the moment, there is a clear quality gap where the NRL is the superior league. Don't get me wrong, the Super League is good, but the NRL is better. Anyway, I'm going to have to leave that there because I've got dinner and food downstairs, man, upstairs. And so it's been a great live stream. We've been going for over 3 hours now. So I appreciate everyone who's got involved tonight. We've had a very good live stream tonight. A lot of good questions and a lot of good topics discussed. I know we did talk a lot about football, and football's not everyone's favourite sport. We did talk about cricket early on, and cricket's not everyone's favourite sport. And we talked about a bit of rugby as well, and some other sports. And we do try and cover everything. But appreciate everything that we discussed and all the questions being put in are really good. And thank you very much. And I will see you. I'll have some more videos for you tomorrow. And I'll have some more live streams this weekend coming up, and during the World Cup as well. There'll be quite a few. So I shall see you all soon. Thank you very much, and good night.